Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Here we are in May, doing it, middle of May, May the 15th. Be with you. Alex Navarro, how are you? You're scrunching your face up. Like you didn't know.
Is me doing it in the middle of May any different than the rest of the time that I'm doing it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tell me about when you're doing it other times.
It's kind of the same, I feel like. It doesn't really change that much.
Are you doing it and doing it and doing it well?
I'd like to think so.
Oh, good. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right.
Brett Shoemaker, how are you?
We got to start workshopping some of this month-related humor. Calendar humor.
I disagree. I think we've nailed it in one.
I feel like we're definitely 3 for 3. I went to the doctor this morning. This is not a setup for anything, and I came out with I haven't been to the doctor in a bit, and I definitely did my Columbo bit of just one more thing.
Just one more thing wrong with me.
Just one more thing. Could you look at? Okay, yeah. No, I'll write you a referral for that. One more thing. There's my wife looks at this. She's got.
Dude, no lie. I don't think there's any greater asset you can have than a patient doctor. Like a doctor who will just sit there and entertain all of your stuff and not try to rush you out the door.
Absolutely. I agree. This wasn't my normal doctor, but this guy was also very good and allowed me. I think I have a piece of paper here with at least 3 referrals that I then had to go call. One of them being my very first colonoscopy.
Ah,
good. Welcome.
How you're 40? What?
46. I missed my 45. I didn't go for my annual in 45.
Interesting.
When I would have gotten it.
My doctor told me 50 last time I asked.
So it used to be 50. I'm not sure the last time I heard their doctor, but they've moved it back.
1972.
They moved it back to 45. And I said the same thing to my doctor. That I just saw. He's like, "Oh, have you had a colonoscopy?" I was like, "No, I think the last time they went, it was still 50." And he was like, "No, it wasn't." no, that was a couple of years ago. And I was like, "All right, well, look, I haven't been to the doctor in a little bit. Okay, all right." And what I discovered was my wife had gone last year, I think, for one, and did not get the anesthesia. She wanted just to
oh, don't do that.
Just go, and she said it was fine. The only thing that I found horrifying was are you talking to the doctor while all this is going on? He's like, yeah, you're just making small talk. I was like, abso-fucking-lutely
not a chance.
Knock me out. If you could give me anesthesia for when I get a haircut, I would do that. I cannot just sit there and make small talk.
When there is an object and or hose up my butt,
yeah,
I need to be in a real intimate kind of relationship to be looking someone in the eye and talking to someone while that's happening.
Yeah.
You want to talk about intimate.
Uh-huh.
My current doctor, who I've only seen twice so far, have not had him that long, is a teaching doctor.
Oh, get the students in there.
Which, on the upside, I guess he's a professor, which means he probably knows what he's doing. On the downside, both times I've been there, 1 to 3 medical students have accompanied him into the room.
That's great.
And
none of them were laughing, right?
No.
Okay, then you're fine.
No.
Were you but you never want to be the one, though. I mean, I understand this is how this works, but you never want to be the one to be where a doctor calls in other people to check something out. Be like,
yo, you gotta see this.
Yo, come in here. Yo, students.
We get one of these a decade. You gotta see this.
Yeah.
So this is super routine. He also made it clear I could decline that.
Yes,
and every time he comes in, he's like, hey, do you mind if they,
Yeah.
But also, who wants to be the wet blanket?
Be like, I'd rather not. There are certain things I might be like, I'd rather not.
I think when it comes to medical stuff, I'm perfectly fine to be a wet blanket.
Especially when, let's be real here, at this point, the students are barely more than half my age.
And I was just going to say, I feel like we all operate under the assumption that anyone probably our age or older is not going to be like, Brad from Nextlander?
Yeah. No.
Oh my gosh. But
that did come up the last time I was there when there were 3 of them and they asked what I did for a living and that turned into a whole conversation.
There you go. So,
but not about, they didn't know who I was, but obviously they know what this type of work is. The first time I went, it was just for a physical, which led to most of the physical happening twice, for example.
Oh, because he demonstrated it?
Like the doctor checked all my reflexes, and then one of the students checked all my reflexes.
Gotcha.
Like they took my blood pressure twice, like...
Did it check out? Hey, look, you're getting 2 times the cost.
Yeah, look, just back up.
I think my problem with this is that I would just feel too much like a weird sideshow act if that was happening. Like, just... Doctor walks in and is like, "Behold, students, the ravages of time." Like, that's not fun. It's already not fun. I extra don't want that.
You don't want like a doctor to have to be like, no, that's normal. He's old. That's
this is gonna happen to you one day.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, check it out. I understand it's necessary and like the whole thing, and I think I'm waiting for the drop, Brad, where you say, and then my insurance charged me again for each medical student because they weren't in network. And I had to, they were visiting physicians.
That sounds like something our horrible system would concoct.
Totally. It was, I hate going to the doctor, but I like having the appointment booked because it feels like I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do, at least to have it checked out. And even though I'm going to get charged, I know, up the wazoo, along with other things up my wazoo, I'm sure there will be a bill there as well. Just insert it.
That's where they leave it.
Yeah, just insert it there. So I have to pay up my deductible. I pay so much for health insurance. I feel like I just need to do something. Even though I still flames with the co-insurance. When did we get into co-insurance land where it's like, what, are you going to pay me $2,000 a month too to have this? But like co-insurance where it's like, no, you pay 40% and we'll pay 40%. We'll go back and forth on this. Come on. It's co-insurance. Be like,
look, we all know this is not a viable system long term.
Anyway, got my whole thing here. Now you're
about to have your whole thing there.
I'm going to have that whole thing there. And it's on... It's
all up there.
I'll say this once, and I will not repeat this again. So this will be for the real Nextlander insiders. Because I'll probably mention when it happens, but it's the Friday before the next not Next Fest, the Games Fest,
Summer Games Fest,
Summer's Games Fest. So,
would you rather get a colonoscopy or go to LA and hang out with Jeff Keighley?
But if I look a little groggy when you see me, or I look really perky. But I do feel like, what is it? I think you can't eat for 24 hours, and you really got to.
No, they're very adamant about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Evacuate.
You really got to let that thing clean out.
Yeah. Right. Yes. What did she say on the phone? She said, drink the thing. And then I laughed. She said, then go visit your throne. I said, oh, you've gone through this dialogue before, huh? She's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. You're going to be up there for a while.
Yeah. So, anyway. That's the news from my neck of the woods. Yeah.
This has been the Vinny Butt Report.
Yeah. More coming soon, hopefully. We'll see what happens when we check when I get checked out. Like a month off though. It's
you got plenty of time to prepare.
Oh, the reason I said the anesthesia stuff, because my wife was like, I was talking to her, I was like, oh, how much time I'd like to be back, and she's like, I don't know, it took me like 20 minutes at the half hour or so. I was like, okay, and then when I called to make the appointment, like, no, you got to get an hour before. And you need to stay for 2 hours after. I was like, holy crap. And it almost made me be like, maybe I'll skip the anesthesia. And then I was like, no.
Under no circumstances will I ever be awake for a procedure like that if the option is given to me to not be.
So did you get started yet? Yeah. You're like a Sonic fan? like Mario? What do you do for a living? I don't really want to talk about it. Can I put headphones in or something? Or,
so how about those Mets?
Just, how's it going? Find anything useful?
Think they're going to make the playoffs this year?
Totally. I imagine.
You want to know what the weirdest thing I ever found up one of these is?
Tonka truck. Just full on Tonka truck. An old Whopper.
An entire jar of cloves.
The other thing I wanted to flip by you guys is I was sitting at the table last night. Yeah. And my son, my wife gets super annoyed, but my son starts singing like what's he doing? Like Whopper, something.
Oh, that fucking theme song. Yeah. God damn it.
Yeah. And my wife is like, no. I don't put my foot down. No.
Yeah.
You're not allowed. And he's like, it's a meme. I was like, we had a whole long conversation, like 10, 15-minute conversation about, Is it a meme or did they just win the advertising and you're just singing the advertising?
Is advertising not inherently a meme?
That's the conversation we had. We had a whole conversation of like, I think you're just repeating I don't think it's a meme unless it's transformative in some way. And unless somebody's like, like the Doppler 5000 is a really cool weather. I think then it's become memeable. But if you're just doing
doing the jingle,
you were just uncritically carrying water for a corporation.
That's the conversation we had, and he was like, "Well, like all the kids in school are singing it." I was like, "Oh God!" And then
all those children are idiots.
I told him,
I bet all those children are eating a lot more Whoppers too.
Totally. And he knew. I knew he knew Grammarly from all the YouTube stuff he's watched for school, like the whole Grammarly. Get better with Grammarly. There was like a KFC one I'd never even heard of. Like he knew fucking Arby's, and I was like, back up. Who
told you about Arby's?
Arby's is my secret.
Who at school has been talking about fucking horsey sauce?
It's like, look, in this area, I was like, where the hell did you hear about an Arby's?
There's no Arby's around here.
I know one Arby's. It's like a block away from Port Authority, and every time I see it, I'm like, man, it's still an Arby's around here? All right. And he was like, yeah, no, I know. They're the king of meats or the meat mountain or something.
They have the meats, yes.
They have the meats. And I was like, how do you know this? Who's talking about Arby's? What is happening in middle school?
Is he watching television?
No. Huh.
Yeah, I have no answers for you.
No, I mean he's watching videos on YouTube, but like they get ads and stuff in front of them. But like I've never seen an Arby's commercial in front of a YouTube video.
Maybe we're not watching the right YouTube.
Isn't this all really just one step closer to Demolition Man?
And that's what I brought up, Brad. I said, there's this movie Demolition Man where on the radio they just listen to jingles from old advertising, and he's like, oh, is like, and he's basically like, what does that mean? And I was like, it's depressing.
The joke is that they have lost art, and this is all that's left.
And then I had to explain the fast food wars and how Taco Bell won.
Yeah.
He's like, did they fight?
And Dan Cortez is there.
Yeah, and Dan Cortez is there, and he's fighting for your Taco Bell freedom. Anyway, it's real, man. And then I had to explain what the saying "truth is stranger than fiction" meant, and then I just got really depressed.
Okay.
Because they won.
I would also be depressed if I had to hear that song outside of commercials.
Totally. Yes. I lost my appetite. I shoved my plate away.
Oh, the battle is never truly over. They may have gained ground, but we can fight back.
The sad part is, I like a Whopper. I'm a fan of the Whopper. I'll eat a Whopper.
Burger King is completely mid-tier
sauce.
fast food, but it's still totally fine.
Yeah.
The Whopper is solid. The fries are terrible, but the Whopper is solid.
Fries are bad. The Whopper is good.
They do have onion rings, which is nothing to sneeze at.
That chicken sandwich, the long, the not the round one, the long one, the like a classic chicken sandwich, or whatever it is. That's pretty good. Get that.
I don't go to a place called Burger King to get a chicken sandwich, my friend.
Yeah, you're right.
That is the realm of the Wendy's for me.
A chicken sandwich from Wendy's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, square hamburgers and chicken sandwiches and a baked potato. That's the Wendy's experience.
I feel like I'm a Baconator Wendy's kind of guy. Baconator
they brought back the Big Bacon Classic,
They still do the 99-cent menu there?
They have a version of it, but nothing is 99 cents anymore. Maybe the barbecue sauce is 99 cents, but nothing else is.
What is a bacon? Would you say Baconator? Is bacon?
The Big Bacon Classic is the thing they had before the Baconator, which was more like just a giant cheeseburger that also had bacon on it.
Okay.
The Baconator is the thing that is just meat, cheese, and bacon, like in several different layers, and that's too much for me.
I'm not a big fan of a double patty on a burger. Like I'm not. It's like a little too meaty for me. I don't need all that meat, all that beef. And we'll see what my.
Yeah, the Baconator's a real fucker.
Baconator is hideous looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to find that on the endoscope or whatever. You've been having a few too many Baconators, huh? No, I could see in here.
Dave Thomas. I actually don't remember if the Baconator came around before Dave Thomas passed or not, but it feels like the invention of some horrible force that took over after Dave Thomas. I don't think Dave Thomas would have invented the Baconator, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're underestimating Dave Thomas.
No, I would never underestimate Dave Thomas. That man is a threat, even in death.
Think Dave Thomas has ever punched someone in the face in a boardroom?
I started to suggest, has he ever killed a man?
Yes. The first person to suggest the hamburger should be round, that guy is dead.
Is he dead? And then somebody comes in and Dave Thomas has an apron on cooking burgers and be like, where's Bill? Eat up. Eat up. Eat up. Bill
is now a square hamburger.
Bill's gone. He's not going to be around anymore, but he's got some things cooking. Eat up. Eat up. Anyway, I'm glad we can get through all of those things.
Dan Reichert's not here, so we only have one of these conversations about once a year. So
Dave Thomas did serve in the United States Army, but as a mess sergeant. I don't think he saw.
Wait, for real?
Yes.
Dave, these hamburgers are square. They're gonna kick you out. I'm telling you, you know how much money we save? They can pack. We can ship these square. You know how much money we lose at all the corners from the round hamburgers? Dave, this is goddamn America, Dave. Our hamburgers are round. You want to go make your square hamburgers? Go over to Europe.
Dave Thomas just sitting there in a trench somewhere, just being like, if I ever get out of this war, man, I'm going to make the fastest baked potato anyone in America has ever seen.
Oh, man. He was heavily involved with KFC before he started Wendy's. Did you know that?
I knew he was involved in other fast food stuff before he started that restaurant.
Like worked directly with Colonel Harlan Sanders.
In the Army.
Some deep Dave Thomas lore here.
It's an exclusive club, and you're not in it.
Dave Thomas in a trench with Colonel Sanders, just been writing
and
a
Ronald
letter.
McDonald.
Writing a
Grimace.
letter. Dearest Wendy, the Colonel
Taco Bell
and
dog.
3 fry guys are down today. It's a sad
Jack
day
from
in
the
the
Jack
trench.
in the Box.
They're
They're just all in there in a trench, just waiting for the war to end.
Someday when I get out of here, I'm going to make a 99-cent taco. Shut up, Jack. Get out there.
Burger King Kids Club. Remember that?
Yeah. Burger King's Kids Club.
They never had a good mascot other than the king, I guess, did they?
They had those cartoon characters. There was like
That's
a
what
whole
I'm saying. That was
club.
the Kids Club kids. I'm saying they never had a good mascot other than the king.
Yeah,
the king was great.
Yeah.
Are we talking the mid 2000s, like late to like around 2010? Not 2010, earlier than that.
It was like that, or it was the aughts.
6, 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Like, did they have a king before that, and this was a new king, or what was this an evolution of the king? That was a new character, right?
It was a new character, but I want to say it was maybe modeled after an old logo or something that they had like back in the day or something like that. But they like when I was growing up, like they just did not have like the Ronald McDonald thing where it was like a bunch of mascot characters. It was that Kids Club thing, and that was it.
Yeah,
that king was just had a certain manic quality to it.
Oh yeah, that thing was a fucking nightmare demon.
Yeah, I feel like that came about when there was a brief period there when like corporations and advertising were like kind of funny for a bit, and before they had all gone onto Twitter and all started to do their like mock accounts and like, make fun of each other, and it was like, oh, the Sneak King, that's pretty good. Like, all right, somebody's having fun with some advertising, and then it all kind of went like, we're friends too, right? Right?
I think that whole bit would have played a lot worse had advert gaming taken off in a bigger way, because I think we would all be lamenting the fact that, you know, at this point now we'd be playing nothing but advert games.
Yeah.
But it didn't. And so now we can just look back on those things and say, like, those are weird curiosities. Those are cool. That and the Yaris game.
We got that.
And then nothing else.
Grimace Game Boy game. Remember that? Skateboarding Grimace?
Yeah, that was all right.
Yeah, that was all right.
Cool Spot?
Yeah, that was all right. The Noid game?
No, the Cool Spot was not that great. The Noid game was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was all right.
Why have I played all of these? What, like, every single one of these things you are saying I have played.
Yeah.
Because you were a child in the 80s.
Yeah.
Fucking Reagan years, man.
Do you remember what the bird was called from McDonald's? It wasn't Birdo, right? Like Mario?
No.
Was it like
Wait,
Flappy?
what? Did they have a bird?
Yeah, they had a bird with like goggles and like a flight helmet, and it was like a bird. It was like a.
Was it like a bird or was it a bird?
It was a bird. It was a bird, and it was like it hung out with the Grimace and.
Look, I remember Grimace. I remember Mayor McCheese.
Are you thinking of Birdie the early bird?
Sure. Does it have like a flight helmet?
She's got she's got goggles and a scarf.
Okay,
That's
goggles and a
enough.
scarf
And like pigtails, kind of.
Sure. Yeah. Birdie. So was that a breakfast thing? Birdie the early bird,
probably.
maybe.
That sounds like something they would do.
Yeah. The little, remember the little nuggets in the little chicken nuggets?
Yeah, and there's like little fry guys.
The fry guys were horrifying.
Yeah.
They were bad. Grimace, Mayor McCheese, the Hamburglar, and I mean that's the old crew.
Yeah.
There was a sheriff too, right?
Probably.
And they're like a cop burger.
Well, there was like a constable burger guy. I feel like because you would put Hamburglar in burger jail.
Was it just
look?
Yeah.
Look, there's only one McDonald's character for me,
Yeah.
and it's Mac Tonight.
So I went back and I said, after we had this long conversation, I said, "Listen, Max, my son, my dear son,
Max Tonight."
I said, Big Mac McBLT, a quarter pounder with some cheese fillet, a fish, a hamburger. And I said, they used to put a record in magazines that you could take out. I was like, this is not new. Now that mom's gone, let's do some advertising. Let's sing some advertising.
Does he know what a record is?
I think so. I think he just thinks it's like kind of a really big CD, which he thinks is also a cassette. So it doesn't really matter.
It all kind of blends together at a certain point.
Brad.
Uh-oh.
I see an ant or two on my desk.
Oh, good. Enjoy.
Oh, man, I see.
It's that season.
Just don't let them find your cable modem.
Oh, man, there's like 3 of them.
They like it in there.
All right, during the break, I'm going to have to take a look and see what's going on over here.
There's been a breach.
There's definitely a breach. Oh, I see them. They're up the wall. Dang, nabbit. It's been really rainy here.
Yeah, that'll send them out scurrying.
There's no food down here. What do you want?
Shelter. Poop
Give
water.
Me shelter. No.
Maybe
Transformers.
they're just sightseeing.
No. Get away. Oh, man. This is what you want during a live podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Vinny fights the ants. Let's get to the video games before they carry me away. How do you guys feel about talking about Cryptmaster?
Now that's a video game.
I've played it.
I've
played it, and I like it.
I like Cryptmaster. I haven't finished Cryptmaster, but I like Cryptmaster.
Yeah.
Cryptmaster. We should.
Yeah.
Crypt.
We should.
Crypt.
We should enunciate. We're not saying Cryptmaster. Just
No,
you're right.
You're right. We
it's
are
a very
not
different game.
We are not Dub C. We are not crypt walking all over this crypt. This is Cryptmaster.
Cryptmaster. Cryptmaster is a game in which you take on the role of 4 newly resurrected undead kind of what'd you call it, like a gold box almost, like Bard's Tale-ish dungeon crawling
like former adventurer type people.
Eye of the Beholder, like that style of first person isometric, like as in you're moving like space by space kind of dungeon crawler sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the main hook being you gotta type to do pretty much everything.
It's like one of those but typing.
But the core conceit is and all the typing are worked into the gameplay elements in really, I think, very interesting and novel ways. So each character has a name. There's Joro, Sin, Joro.
Mm-hmm.
Joro, Sin, Maz, and Nyx. I think Nyx.
Yes, I think that's right.
Which I think equates to fighter, rogue, basically, or thief, bard, and like spellcaster
Wizard,
/
spellcaster.
Sea Witch. I think they is are like a class. Initially, they start off with like no abilities, and they have like a hangman style bar next to their name, and so you can try and just guess what an ability, maybe hit might be one of the abilities. And if you guess it, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes in your inventory and you can use that during a fight. Along the way of doing that, occasionally it will switch from a white background to a black background. And that means you're trying to uncover some of their history or their lore. So something like struggle. And then it'll be like, oh, Joro struggled to do this thing. And then you move back on to an ability. As you're navigating, you are in the presence of some Darth Maul looking dude.
We should mention these people are all dead.
They're all dead.
They're all zombies. They're all undead.
Not everything in the crypt is dead, but you certainly are.
And people like to riff. This game's pretty funny, or it definitely has a sense of humor at least.
Yeah.
Whether you find it funny is subjective, but it is worth mentioning that it's quite lighthearted, and I do think it's pretty funny a lot of the time.
I think if the narrator / Cryptmaster / dude who is guiding you through stuff was not as sharply written as he is, and also did not sound exactly like Vincent Price, I would be less into it. But
the VO of the Cryptmaster is pretty fantastic. It's just something about the delivery is very unconventional in a way that's really funny. Also, I think it's like one of the developers doing the VO for the Cryptmaster.
I'm telling you, they are doing a rock solid Vincent Price impression. Like, it is dead on.
Yeah.
Yes.
The accent, the pauses, the chuckles, the whole thing is just
the vaguely haughty kind of attitude.
It's quite entertaining. We should mention, I feel like this is like almost more of an adventure game than an RPG. Like, you're not making characters, you're not assigning stats. There's no like character builds or management what to do whatsoever. Like, there are hit points in battle, like you are dealing 1 damage, 2 damage to enemies and stuff, but it's the RPG stuff is light to the point that I wouldn't even call this an RPG.
No.
Though there are like status effects and stuff like that. Like, there's a knockdown effect with certain attacks, things like that.
And you're not really getting any kind of, like you said, experience point or something like that. You are getting new abilities. You can occasionally open a chest or a box, and then you do like almost a 5 questions, not 20 questions, but like a 5 questions thing with the Cryptmaster.
Yeah, you look at it, you touch it, you listen to it, you smell it, you taste it, all that stuff.
You can remember it.
You have to guess what it is, and if you don't get it right, you just lose the chance to get it.
If you don't get it right, it goes away, which I assume just gets recycled into something else some other time. I don't think it goes away forever. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Also, like, so I'm trying to remember, like, so the loot that drops off of enemies is just letters, because like the whole crux of this game is you're trying to constantly keep guessing new abilities for your characters, because like each character has like, God, what is it? It's got to be like well over 100, right?
It's a whole page.
For sure.
The menu that comes up for each character has got so many spots on it for new abilities to guess.
And backstory.
Yes. Not all of them are combat abilities.
Some of them are just memories.
So the loot that drops off of enemies just fills in letters for whatever ability you're trying to guess at the moment. Like, it just like, hey, I'm going to... this enemy dropped Splorg, and I'm going to choose the L out of that.
Yes.
And then if any of the abilities I'm currently trying to guess has an L in it, it'll drop that into the slot where it would go. Well, one thing I was going to ask, actually, can you guess abilities that are not currently up?
I don't think so. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think
it seems like it's queuing stuff up in order.
Yeah, because each character will have a certain number of slots up for letters next to their name at all times, and that's the thing it's filling letters in, the ability you're trying to guess, but I don't think you can guess something else that's not currently...
I think that's correct. I think it has to fit into one of the hangman style slots at the bottom.
So the thing I was going to say, like the letters drop off of enemies that you beat, like I said, I think, isn't that also the case for chests? Like, you'll guess, it'll be some fantasy RPG, shield, whatever, sword.
You get those letters.
Right, but you're not actually getting a sword to use or anything. It's just giving you the letters in the name to put into your slots, right?
Oh, I think you're right. I haven't gotten one in a while, but I think you might be right. Maybe you just do get the letters and not the... Yeah, because one of them was coin, and I don't have an ability that's coin.
Right. So I guess to be fair, you're not really missing that much if you don't get what's in a chest, because you're not losing an item.
That's true. Yeah,
and there's other ways to get letters, or like you said, you could just brute force it and guess.
There are riddles. I don't know if you've run into the stack of skull riddles.
Skull riddles, yeah.
Those are fun, and actually they're pretty good. I had a fun time. I did a live stream of this, and it was just fun with the chat up to see who can... Some riddle masters in there, just run it down.
I Googled the first riddle, and the exact literal wording they use in the game came back on multiple websites. Like exact wording, exact punctuation, and everything. So I wonder if they... We're just pulling from a common list of riddles.
Why wouldn't... I feel like that's also in the tone of the humor of the game, of like, these are just recycled riddles from somewhere else. Yeah,
so like the Cryptmaster he's not entirely an asshole, but he is a little bit of a jerk, but he's also kind of helpful. And,
he wants you to succeed.
And like maybe the most impressive thing about this is that there's just like a bajillion lines of dialogue they recorded, because you can type all kinds of stuff in and he will respond like pretty specifically to the things you say.
Fairly, you get some recycled Mad Lib style stuff, but
it definitely feels like they were mixing and matching some lines.
So the question is, how many different ways have you defiled an altar?
That's been my favorite part of the game so far. Like your save points are, you're undead serving this evil skull demon. The save points are, I forget what the the goddess's name is, but she's like the goddess of life and light, or she's the servant thereof.
And she really hates you, even before you start defiling shit.
She's pretty funny after the first time you defile one of her altars.
Yes.
Thereafter, when you run into her, she's just like, get the fuck away from me. You're going to regret this. But yes, coming up with synonyms for desecrate. Like defile worked, desecrate worked. What else did I try?
Did you try pissing on it?
Yeah.
Oh, you can just do. Okay, I was thinking more specific, like verb synonyms. I
have projectile, like body fluided, everything I can think of so far on that thing.
Like I tried befoul, and it would not take that.
Okay,
I vomited.
I didn't realize I didn't realize you could just like unleash bodily fluids on it. That's different.
Undead bodily fluids on top of that, so that's like extra defiling.
Yeah.
Then you keep looking at those ants.
I found it.
Oh.
They're going into a device.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Just type squish.
I know.
Yeah.
They are going into one of my HDMI audio extractors.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, they like it in there.
What the hell? What's in there?
I won't rehash the entire story, but
I know.
Ants built a colony inside my cable modem about 15 years ago. They seem to, I assume because it's warm? I don't know.
It's whatever, man. It's something. What's in there, guys?
Carol Ant, don't go into the light.
Why would you go in there, ants? Anyway, sorry, Cryptmaster.
Anyway,
you collect bugs.
Yes, you do. Yeah. You've got like kind of mana. Basically, you have to like find living things and squish them to get mana to use most of your abilities. It's not super easy. I mean, it's easy up to a point. Once I start fighting those blobs. Oh, actually, I should mention like they do some cool stuff like you'll fight an enemy with a shield and it'll be like this character blocks any word with a B in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to those gelatinous cubes, which grow bigger if you use the wrong letters.
Yes.
And those things were kicking my ass. I could get through one fight just fine, but fighting 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row.
Yeah.
I actually died completely for the first time. Like you can go back to a save point at any time and fully heal and resurrect characters, but it's kind of a lot of backtracking, and those things were really. I should mention every character has a cooldown. Like when you use a character's ability, they are just on cooldown.
The Bard is pretty good about buffing or getting rid of cooldowns.
Does the Bard get more abilities for those? Because so far the Bard can refresh the fighter's cooldown. That's all I've got.
There's a really good one where he can actually refresh the rogue and the witch at the same time.
That's huge. Okay,
and so I'm casting salmon, which makes fish just drop on people with the sea witch, and then I do fjord with the rogue, which stacks another hit on top of murder, and then I refresh, and then I could do them both again, which is pretty good.
I do have murder. I definitely don't have salmon.
Do you have crabs?
No, you just sound like you have way more abilities than me. So I could see this game getting way more fun and more varied when you have a lot more abilities. I've mostly just got a lot of the basics right now. I've got like 2 or 3 per character.
It's sometimes hard to keep up. It's like, but you can pretty easily pull up the abilities. But I forget sometimes. Like, oh right, yeah. Especially when there is an enemy that blocks on a certain letter or has some kind of buff on a certain letter. I have to be like, oh gosh, all right, I can't do this word. What else do I have? This is my combo I usually do. My biggest complaint, and I really like this game, but my biggest complaint is I get turned around very easily in the dungeons, and especially Brad, I think you're up to the rats part too. They get pretty sprawling.
It seems like it.
The map is starting to get quite big, and you only ever have a mini map to look at, and the environment looks very samey.
Pretty samey. So
it's all black and white. We should mention, like, it's really stylized black and white, which looks nice. But yeah, that's like there's not a lot of like texture sets, so everything kind of looks the same.
Like you're kind of having to use NPCs to sort of judge where you are. Yeah.
There's fishing in the game, which is interesting because when you type in the name of the fish, and then you basically do this thing where you can push left or right and scroll through the letter you want in a weird way, and you have to time it correctly, and then when you reel it in, you get to reel in that letter that you want to add to your inventory of letters. I do wish you kept track of letters you've tried recently or showed some kind of letters, though the different characters will cycle through abilities not at the same time, so that might be tough because if you pulled up an A and then nobody had an A available, and then you guess Joro's thing, now Joro might be able to get an A on his next thing where everybody else couldn't. So it might be a little tough to do that. You just kind of have to remember. Like, oh, I tried O, right? Yes, I did O already. I think this game is super fun. I looked it up too to be like, how did they do this? Because there are so many responses that seem to be triggered by what you're saying that are not generic. And there was the first thing that came up was a video by, I think, one of the devs being like, I get asked so many times, did we use like generative AI for this? And like the answer is no, we just wrote a lot of stuff and recorded a ton of different things, which is kind of amazing. Like it doesn't feel like that. It feels very natural most of the time. Again, you do get repeats, and the longer you play, you start getting repeats as you try to poop on everything. But it's cool. It's a novel, fun, cool game that I don't know how long it goes, and I don't know if it wears out its welcome, but I'm still enjoying it.
I really like it for what it is. I shouldn't penalize it for what it's not. But looking at screenshots before it came out, I thought there was going to be a lot more not word play, but more like Scrabble type word assembly kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's just super not that. And again, like whatever, like they made a game with a specific focus, and they did it quite well. But I thought there was going to be maybe more of like, hey, each character has like a jumble of letters, and if you can come up with words out of those jumbles, you can attack with those.
Oh, like a word scramble style?
Yeah, like a Scrabble style. Like if I can make a word out of the fighter's 7 current letters, I can get an attack based on how cool a word I came up with. You know, like that would have been. It's a lot more. It's a lot more about like guessing the abilities and just whipping them out.
Yes.
It's not about like component letters and coming up with like creatively coming up with things yourself.
Yeah, it's not like Scribblenauts where you're just like putting terms in and seeing what pops out.
Yeah, and it's not like what are they called? Like anagrams? It's not like is that the right thing where all the letters are mixed up and you're just it's not that. No, it's a mix of like hangman and then the kind of a little typing of the deadish. You know, but it's fun. It's cool, and I like the vibes of it. And if you guys meet the Kid Rat, make sure you talk to the Kid Rat a bunch. Some good dialogue on the missing Kid Rat.
I'm in the area with the missing Kid Rat. I don't know if I've found the missing Kid Rat yet.
I've also got that quest. I found a different rat that had taken an arrow.
Oh yeah, I met that guy.
And that went bad for him.
Oh yeah, no arrow to the knee joke though.
No, it's just it was actually pretty funny. Like it's charming. Like it's got a good personality.
And the voices are funny. It's funny stuff. All right.
The rats are all Australian.
Yes. We're going to take a quick break here. I'm going to put an ant trap on top of this HDMI video audio extractor and let that do its work, and we'll be back in just a moment. This week's show is brought to you by Babbel. Alex Navarro, Brad Shoemaker. If you know one thing about me, it's that when I do accents, they're usually spot on and perfect. I love languages, and I'm also terrible at them. I've never been very good at them, but I do love the process of learning them. Babbel is here to help me, someone who loves learning languages, but maybe has never really found the right way to learn them or to learn them appropriately. I have been using Babbel for a while now. I do it with I use Babbel and I go over it with my daughter, who also is actually pretty good at learning other languages. She's got like my wife's ear, not my ear, for hearing languages. Babbel is easy to use. I have it on the iPad. We go through it like once a night. We go through a couple of lessons. It's fun. It's intuitive. I actually personally have the lifetime subscription for it because that's how long it's probably going to take me to learn another language.
So podcast in Italian coming soon is what you're saying?
I would love that. I would honestly be so psyched to do something like that. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. They have quick 10-minute lessons that are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. And studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. You know how much that's going to cost you? Let me tell you something. It's expensive. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners. Nobody else. At babbel.com/Nextlander. Get 55% off at babbel.com/Nextlander. That's spelled BABBEL.com/Nextlander. Rules and restrictions may apply. Thanks, Babbel. We are back, and I've got ant traps laid, and I sent these guys a picture. Brad, you've been down this well before, this animal well. What can you say to this picture?
At the top, it's not called bug well, man. At the top of this podcast, you made it sound like it was like 2 or 3.
No,
were you underestimating then, or has it just gotten that much worse?
It's gotten worse, and also when I found the spot. The entrance spot, and I found the device they want to live in now. That's was much worse. There were one or two ramblers, you know.
I see. You were tracking them back to the source. I see.
Yes, I
regret to inform you that your audio extractor may be forfeit.
Yeah. It's a bummer
actually
too.
In your case, I bet you could just open it up and purge them.
I might have to, because I feel like this is one of those ones that strips out the HD or the HDCP, and those are harder to find now.
Oh, yes, those. I think they're still maybe out there, but last time I looked, I couldn't find any.
Yeah,
in my case, I just called Comcast because it was their cable modem.
You're like, it's buggy. You got buggy software.
Act of God.
They just came out and took it and gave me a new one.
No God would do this.
I've talked about it before, but I picked that thing up, and what I presume were eggs fell out of it.
Gross!
In addition to the ants that were swarming all in and out of it. Like, do ants even have eggs, I assume? I don't know.
Sure. Live birth on ants.
Anyway,
aphids, I believe.
You sent a picture.
Yeah.
That's like hundreds of ants.
They're streaming in through, like I said, it's been raining a lot. One of their hives must have just gotten flooded or something, and they found a hole.
That happens every time it rains here, though, and I can tell you from experience, this is a targeted attack. This is not just, hey, we've been displaced by water. This is like, we found something we really like, and we're going to set up shop there.
What the hell did they find? I don't eat down here. I
can't believe it's happening again.
It's happening again. I can't keep getting away with this. Anyway.
So this is the album art, right? Is that picture of the ants?
No. Nobody needs to see this ever.
All right.
I said that for you guys, so you can understand when I start looking away from the camera here.
I can tell you what when I typed why do ants like electronics into Google, what the AI overview said.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Ants are attracted to electronics because they provide warmth, shelter, and electromagnetic waves.
Cool. Great.
Do they like that last thing?
I don't know if that's some bullshit or what.
That's what the AI likes too.
There are some actual results from actual pest control businesses to look at.
I've had fairly decent luck with those like Taro ant traps, so I put some of those down. Now I just gotta wait for them to find those instead of my HDMI audio extractor. But
maybe I didn't wait it out long enough. I felt like I never got the good end of those things. Like they definitely flooded them. Like definitely brought like literal thousands of ants out of the walls.
Yeah.
But I never felt like I saw a reduction in ants.
Oh, really? You just got...
like it felt like they just kept coming, or if I put another trap down, they would just go to that one instead. Like they never stopped.
I usually cycle them out every once in a while. They usually are okay. Look, now I feel like I'm just going to be feeling for ants constantly, so I just want everybody to know.
Okay.
Got ants in my pants.
I won't hold it against you.
Well, we mentioned it before, and now I'm going to use it anyway. Animal well. Deep down the animal well. Ants are animals. We're all animals. Aren't we? Aren't we all animals,
True.
really? The animals are doing great, and they're fantastic. They're well. This is a game that we saw. I think it came up in the Planorama, but I guess it has been out in the public consciousness.
Yeah, like wow, has the conversation around this game changed since that Planorama, which couldn't have been more than 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's it. We talk about it, and then they blow up. That's the next bump.
That's right. Animal Well is a really interesting game.
Really interesting. I guess so. There's a couple of parts to this. One is the thing that you might see if you look up Animal Well and you're looking for some top level thing, which is it's published by Big Mode, which is Donkey's label.
Yes. Video Game Donkey founded a publisher 2 years ago, I want to say.
This is their first release, right?
Year and a half. Yeah, this is the first game they've put out.
So it's the label. I think it's Big Mode, right? Big Mode is the
Big Mode is the
label?
name of the publisher. Yes.
The other thing
the distinction to make there, you see a lot of people just talking about it by saying like, "Hey, Donkey's game is cool" or whatever. It's important to distinguish. Donkey published the game, but did not develop it. So it was developed. I don't know if you've seen this. It was developed by a single dude who I think worked at NetherRealm before, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
Like wrote a custom engine from the ground up for this game. Like the entire install footprint of this thing is like 33 megabytes.
It is quite small
or something. It's basically a Metroidvania, except there's kind of no combat. It's like an almost entirely puzzle based.
Yeah.
One of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With a lot of really unconventional uses of mechanics.
Yeah.
I guess I would say, and a lot of stuff that in fact, everything that you just have to intuit yourself because there's zero preamble or tutorial or guidance of any kind whatsoever. There's
like a decent amount of platforming.
A lot of platforming.
It's very tight timing-based puzzles in some parts. Extremely tight.
I'm torn on this game. It's super interesting. Like I said, there are some things about it that I think are just flat out exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
Like particularly the audio-visual design is just sublime. It's like one of the best looking sounding games I have played in forever. And like I said, a lot of the secrets you peel back and the uses of mechanics that you don't expect in there are super clever and really satisfying when you find them. I feel like though there's like a fine line between punitive and sadistic. And sometimes this game veers a little bit on the wrong side of that line. Like you said, the platforming is super tight. There's like maybe a little too many, just a few too many gotchas for me in there of like, I thought I could jump over that enemy, but boy, did they just grab me right out of the air.
Yeah. Some one-hit kills on a couple of enemies. Like
one-hit kills in some spots where they like spawn a thing on top of you that you didn't see coming. And that stuff wouldn't be so bad, except that the checkpoints are spaced out in such a way. It's very shortcut focused.
Yeah.
Not to say this is a Dark Souls or whatever, but it is that thing of like, you're going to see a blocked door right next to the save point.
Right.
But you know it's going to be 10 or 15 minutes of navigating around to get to it and open it.
Yeah.
And there's been a couple cases where I just could not get through the thing
before you died or something.
I had to like platform the same 10 minutes of level like 4 times because I kept dying on the thing, not quite knowing what I was supposed to do.
So the checkpoint might even be generous. They have save points, and if you save at a save point, a telephone, you can respawn at that telephone. But if you didn't save there, you will not respawn there.
Right.
So like if you're exploring and you did not hit a save on a thing, you will respawn back where you saved last time.
Yeah.
So I played this on stream. I think it didn't sit super great with me on the stream. I think I wound up focusing. Some people are telling me afterward that like, oh man, you were really using these abilities in ways that were not necessarily intended, making the game like a billion times harder for yourself. But I was being successful successful in air quotes. And I wound up using those same tricks to get around other puzzles later. So I kind of worked out for me. I went back after that and I did finish, or I saw credits on the game. So, maybe 6 hours of time for me until I saw credits. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I think the game was beaten by anything. I think there's a lot of find all the secrets, go get all the eggs. I think I have 12 out of 15 achievements, but the remaining achievements are like, did you get all the eggs? Did you do all the things? Did you really beat Animal Well?
You see a lot of people talking about it in like Fez-like terms of like some of the hidden meta puzzles behind the obvious puzzles are the real game, or like there's a ton of meat there, and some of it is like, or what was the other game recently that you were, Tunic was another one recently where you were like saying some of those late game puzzles are just kind of unreasonable to figure out by yourself. Like it's more of that kind of thing of like people are working together to figure stuff out and that sort of thing. There's quite a disparity. I don't put like ultimate faith in howlongtobeat.com, but it is a decent reference. There's a huge disparity. It's like main story 6 hours, completion is 16 hours.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So for that reason,
so cool, what I've got is, I can't tell for sure, but because there is no explicit anything in this game, but it seems like the more eggs you get, you do unlock, or it seemed like doors opened when I got certain eggs, and I got certain abilities. One of the abilities gave me a thing that really helped me in traversal. I don't want to spoil stuff for people, but one of them was for navigating the map, and one of them. So I think those were gated behind the eggs I got.
Man, does it give you any indication at all of that, or am I just missing something huge? Because I have like 9 eggs now, and up to this point, I've assumed the eggs are just collectibles. I didn't realize they did anything.
So I think I've gotten 2 achievements for collecting eggs. I have like 27-ish eggs.
Okay, I got one achievement, but it was just a like find 8 eggs achievement.
So I think you should go check. There's a room where the eggs are stored.
Yeah, I found that room.
You should go back there if you haven't recently. And that's where the door opened up for me.
Oh, okay.
In that room. And that's why I think it's associated to the eggs. And 2 doors opened, and I've gotten 2 egg achievements. So that's just me, again, intuiting what's going on there. And then later on, like the puzzle timing can get pretty hair pulling, like you're like, oh man. And I still, even by the time I hit credits, did not love the precision on some of the controls. Like it didn't feel super great for some of the stuff they were asking.
It does feel like, I'd say generally pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it feels responsive. Yeah. It's just that what they're asking is so demanding.
Yeah. It's a little over the top.
Spots. Like, did you do the, I'll say this game's kind of hard to talk about because like I've been so delighted 2 or 3 times at what I stumbled onto or figured out that I don't even want to talk about basic mechanics here, because I think that's a big part of like, okay,
it's part of the enjoyment.
I'm trying to think how to like not use any nouns here. Like the first ability like item that you get that is not expendable, but is a thing you can just use over and over. Like
that might be, you might have gotten a different thing than I did.
Oh, I don't. Interesting. It felt to me like there was only one, at least early on, there's only one path. Like you kind of have to get this item first. I could be wrong though. Anyway, whatever. There are more uses of a given item sometimes than it looks like right off the bat, and figuring those out is really cool. I forgot why I was using that as a setup for something else. There's like an encounter with a dog. There's a lot of dog enemies.
Yeah.
There's one in particular that can kind of follow you in this worm-like way through a little maze. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's like a Dachshund or something. Like a
a little Dachshund that can kind of like act like a worm and follow you through this like little Dig Duggy looking maze kind of thing. That part I straight up like turned the game off after I died like 4 times on that thing.
Did you ever get through that whole thing?
I did finally get through it.
Did you find anything in there?
It's because the dogs are faster than you, so they will.
Yeah.
You have to just get enough of a lead on them because they'll catch up to you eventually. But in that spot, you're doing a bunch of little like 1 character width jumps through like super tight gaps. And if you're like a pixel off, you will not go through the gap right on the first try, and then it will just kill you. I did eventually get through it. I couldn't figure out what it did though.
That's right. I couldn't figure. So again, I just
came out the other end.
It's another one of those cases where look, if you're at the nearest save is maybe 2 screens away or something. It's not that far.
That isn't a perfect example of there's a shortcut that makes that thing trivial because you can get back to it in 10 seconds. But if you haven't opened that shortcut, then it's like 10 minutes to get back there. And I tried it like 3 times. It's less than 10 minutes after you know what you're doing, but it's still kind of tedious.
So.
Just to wrap that up, it turned out I didn't even have to do that at that time. Like, it turned out there was another way to just move on somewhere else without even having to do that little maze thing. So yeah, it was.
And so the game can be like that sometimes, where it feels like it can be punishing for exploration because of the lack of checkpoints, where you want to check something out and you might hit a fork where there are 2 places to go. One brings you all the way to the other side of the map without a return, and one keeps going the direction you want to go. And that always felt bad to me. Like when I hit a part and there's like, I don't know, some kind of thing that's like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to check out this hole, or I'm going to try this transport mechanism and see where it goes. And I'd get dumped all the way back somewhere and be like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Like I have to go work my way all the way back up there. I didn't open the shortcut yet, or I didn't save near there. I was looking for the save. Yep. That always felt bad. But in general, I came around on it. I wouldn't say like I'm head over heels with it, but it's a fun game. It's neat. And it's doing really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Or there's fun in the game. There's frustration in that game too.
For sure.
And I think it's going to be up to what your patience is and it's different for me than a Fez or a Tunic, because a Fez or a Tunic had a narrative you're uncovering, and this doesn't feel like that. This doesn't feel like I'm getting a secret language or a story or some bigger world defining thing. It just feels like, at least the parts I'm at, and maybe this changes, you're just doing it for the sake of doing the puzzles. And even moving on, maybe you got to think some point that's like, oh, now this explains the animal well, and maybe, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a game that would just drop some text on you.
No, definitely not. I mean, just different preferences. Like I'm happy to just be in a world that feels really cool, and mysterious.
It's a mechanics world. It's like,
and a lot of vibes. Like we should mention, like the look. I mean, I said the look is great and didn't say what it looks like, but it's like a really lo-fi type of pixel art.
It's almost Undertale-ish, like
except like the sprite, like sprites, quote unquote. I don't even know how these graphics are constructed, but the characters are very small. Like your character is super tiny, and like even the bigger animals are not huge. Well, actually, there's like, I've seen one what might pass for a boss that was actually huge.
There are some larger characters throughout the game.
Yeah, but
screen filling characters.
It's like maybe I've talked about this before. It's like maybe the best one example of this I've ever seen, of like old style of graphics, but with modern techniques overlaid or added to it that you absolutely could not have done back then.
Like the fireworks, the firecracker.
Yeah, it's like all the lighting and environmental stuff that reacts to you. Like all the plants in the environment react super physically to everything you're doing.
Yeah.
When you touch them or your abilities touch them, the lighting is fantastic. There's a bunch of rooms that are like almost pitch black, and you can like throw firecrackers and light candles and stuff. And like the lighting looks really modern. What was the other example? Oh, the like reflections in water look fantastic. Like there's distortion on all the reflections. Like it looks so goddamn cool. And
the puzzles are generally fun. It's not, again, there are frustrating ones with timing, and it's it should be said that some of these are like agility based. Like they will come down to, can you pull this off?
Yeah, it is. I mean, even pretty early on, there's platforming challenges that are like, okay, you need exactly the right momentum to make this jump. You can't jump from even this platform. You need to like back up 2 platforms and get a full run to make this, because you're gonna fall like 5 pixels short otherwise.
And I think when I say like some of the feels like sometimes the controls don't meet what I wanted to do, it is exactly that thing you talked about where there's a tiny gap, and unless you're lined up perfectly and push the button directly, you won't fit through those tiny gaps. And when you have to do that on a time crunch, it makes me want to throw the controller through a wall.
Yeah,
like, man, come on.
Yes, and it front loads the game with a lot of those, but now I'm like, I feel like I'm probably maybe like halfway through it or something, looking at the map that I've uncovered. But a lot of the stuff, once you get deeper into the game, is less timing based and more like you got a cool ability, and it's more puzzly now. It's more like you need to, again, trying to be vague, like you need to drop this ability at the right spots, facing the right directions, and like make environmental things happen to open doors. Like it's been a nicer mix of like, not everything is super tight timing. Some of it is more like thinky.
It gets back there.
Yeah, I'm sure I absolutely am bracing for that for sure.
I enjoyed myself. I think during the stream when I was playing it, I was getting frustrated, and again, I was using abilities in ways that maybe they were unnecessarily challenging, but rewarding. Again, like I think there's a lot of shortcutting through stuff and doing things the way you think they should be done instead of the way they have to be done. And somebody asked, like, well, is it fun? And I couldn't quite answer because I was really getting frustrated with some of the challenges.
Yeah.
I think at this point, my answer is it was fun in the puzzle solving. It was fun to solve the puzzles and to finish the thing. While I was in it, I was still frustrated at parts, being like, oh man, this thing is a pain. That's
kind of where I've been at too. Like not all of the immediate action is I mean, it's nice to get through it, but it's kind of grueling.
Yeah.
It's the figuring things out. It's both solving the very obvious on-screen puzzles and also like figuring out the secrets to how things work. That is the satisfying part for me. And they do a pretty good job, I think, of like I said, there's abilities you'll get that clearly do one thing, but then there's also something else crucial you can do with them that is not obvious. I think they do a good job of very subtly setting up environmental things that will make you stumble into those in a way that makes you feel smart. Like there's like twice now I have like kind of not realized I could do something, but then done it because of what they were asking me to do. I ended up stumbling into one of these kind of hidden things, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, but the abilities, there aren't that many of them by the end, so you do spend a lot of time using the same ones over and over in different ways. Yeah. And sometimes you're just banging your head against the wall trying abilities in ways that you're like, what the heck? I know, like there was a point where I had all the abilities, or what I thought were all the abilities, and I was like, well, there's got to be a way through this because I have everything. It's not like I'm going to come back. And actually, I don't think I ever really did. Maybe 3 or 4 spots that I marked the map and I was like, I'll come back here because I don't think I have this thing. For the most part, I was like, I think I can solve this if I just bang my head against it. And again, using abilities in weird ways to hack around what they want you to do is kind of fun. Again, for me though, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know, I'm very story driven. So like, I like having mechanics are great and all that, but like I like having a end goal of revealing the story, and this kind of didn't have or doesn't have much of that at all, or if any.
It's basically wordless past the menu as far as I've seen.
And like,
can you annotate the map?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice.
You can put stamps on it, and there's some other stuff later you can do.
I need to start doing that because it's going to be hard to find some of this stuff again.
Yeah, it's hard to find. So yeah, it's a cool game. It's one of those. I don't know, what is the genre of like obscure, figure it out on your own kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there's necessarily enough of these to put a genre on it.
Yeah,
but like Fez and Tunic have been kind of the go-to. Comparisons.
Yeah. And for me, I think I just need a little more narrative hook. And, look, somebody might message me and be like, oh, if you go on those extra 10 hours, I'll give you all the story you want.
I promise you there's going to be YouTube explainers about what all the animals mean and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm happy just existing in this really cool looking world. The sound design, also, it's like very retro, but it actually feels like kind of specifically Atari 2600 influenced in some ways to me, which I also like quite a bit. I have to ask you about one puzzle, which is not really spoiling anything.
Sure, give it to me.
I hit something this morning that is like, I guess I'll say there's water and a quasi musical element involved.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? Are you able to solve that when you get there?
I think so.
I could not figure that one out.
Should be some cranks nearby.
No, I did that. I played with it a lot, and like the tech, like the physics and stuff on the way the water works is amazing, but I didn't quite put together what they wanted me to do, or maybe I just wasn't lining it up pixel perfect.
I'm pretty sure you can solve it
because
just with the cranks.
There looked like a thing I was supposed to do with that looked pretty obvious, and I couldn't make it work.
Yeah,
but anyway, like I said, the way the physics works there is super impressive. It was just like a really delightfully weird use of mechanics.
Yeah.
So I hope there's more stuff like that in there. I definitely want to at least see credits and poke around a little more in this game.
It's not super long, and I think I think you'll really enjoy it too, because there are some satisfying challenges, and also that last level is atmospherically worth seeing. Like, it is disturbing in a pixel way that, you remember Inscription had some like really just like, this like atmosphere here is like creepy as hell. The last level also has some like really like unnerving things going on. Okay, all right, yeah. I hate that I have to navigate this puzzle in this thing, but this is pretty good. Yeah, Inscription like is what I would say that last part.
Interesting.
It's cool. It's worth seeing. Congrats to the dev on that one. It's a cool game. Not a long credits. I think there's a part in there, I didn't know what this is, but there's like an ARG completers or something on there that had like 5 times as many people than worked on the game. It seemed like a very small, if not minuscule team.
Interesting.
I'm going to say it here too, because this might be a refrain we come to for the next month and a half to 2. Plenty of awesome games out there that are coming out that are smaller games, and this is one of them. Yeah. Cryptmaster, one of them.
Last Thursday was ridiculous. Like I almost came in here leading with that of just like, man, like last Thursday was some indie explosion.
Yeah.
It was Animal Well, Cryptmaster, Crow Country, which sounds like you've played. I want to play. Rabbit and Steel, which looks really cool. Little Kitty, Big City. It was just like indie game after indie game that looked really interesting and cool.
1000x Resist.
Yeah, 1000 times Resist. We have confirmation. I don't know if you saw that email come in. We have confirmation from a developer or publisher that they pronounce it 1000 times Resist.
1000 times Resist.
Yeah, it
does sound better that way.
Well, you can thank Street Fighter Cross Tekken for muddying the waters on how to pronounce an X in a video game title.
True. I played that game for a lot of things in my life.
But yeah, like it was kind of a nice like bright spot in the middle of all this strife in the big publisher AAA world to just see all these rad indies coming out all at once.
Totally. And I'll mention it here too before we move on to our next game. You guys probably saw that Prince of Persia moved out of the way of Hades to be like, we're gonna launch we're gonna launch later. We're gonna
particularly for a run based game, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. Also, not to leave out, Duck Detective is I think next week, and I'm looking forward to that one too. All right. You mentioned Crow Country, a game I cannot stop calling Crow County for some reason. Crow Country, I picked this up because I saw credits on Animal Well sooner than I thought I was going to. And then I was like, oh, all right, well, I can either put a little bit of time now, my remaining time, into Homeworld 3 or put it into Crow Country. And I think we had talked about it before of like, well, I don't know where an hour or two of Homeworld 3 is going to get me, but it might get me somewhere in Crow Country. And it did. That game, I didn't know much about it. It is basically a throwback. It looks kind of like an N64.
Oh yeah, it is.
Or like maybe PlayStation, but it really has N64 vibes to me of like an N64 Resident Evil-ish.
This is the first time I've seen it in motion. I've kind of been avoiding it because I want to play it because it's very up my alley. I need to zoom in though here. Does it have swimmy vertices or not? That's the telltale sign of a PlayStation look. It does not.
I don't think it does.
Then it is fake.
Like I said, I was getting really big N64 vibes with the kind of chalkier characters, you know?
Yeah, actually, this main character looks straight out of that Final Fantasy VI N64 tech demo that Square did way back in the day. Like, very much that style of character design, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah. I've only kind of jumped into it. Very much ammo scarcity so far. Very much like, you open that menu, it is Resident Evil. You have your heart rate monitor that is in different colors. It says, critical, fine. You're picking up keys and gems and whatever to open other doors in Crow Country, this kind of weird amusement park. There are zombie-like things that you want to shoot in the head as they shamble towards you.
Man, this is the first time, like I said, I'm seeing it in motion. I really need to play this game.
You really should.
This looks so cool.
Yeah, I think you'd really get a kick out of it. It controls pretty well so far. Like, I'm doing the thing now, trying to learn the game of basically, do you want me to kill stuff or do you want me to run past stuff? What is going to be my survival here? Like, where are you tuned to? Am I going to get ammo after I kill this guy and like run past something? It's going to be an ammo drop? Or should I just save all my ammunition at this point and try and run past as many? Are you going to respawn enemies if I kill them? Because then I'm not going to kill them. So I'm still learning the game quite a bit. One of the things that is not good for me, which is probably fine for you, Brad, you do have to remember the codes if you read one. At least it seems like it so far. So if there's a code that says 3406 is the code to the locker, 2 screens later, you reach the locker and you're like, 3604? 30. It's not like, I feel like a lot of modern games just put it up on the screen now.
I mean, it's hard to say that feels like an intentional throwback, but I don't even feel like old games necessarily force you to do that all the time. Like, I feel like even then they mostly would annotate it for you somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been that big of a problem yet. And it feels deliberate in the gameplay where I've run into about 3 puzzles now that had you remember something from a screen or 2 before that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to remember this. And I will now make note of it because now I know how this game works and you're going to ask me for this later. It's neat. It's cool. Indies rule. It's
there we go.
I don't know.
I kept trying to think of a name for last Thursday. Like Indie-geddon or Indie-pocalypse don't work because those sound bad.
Yeah.
Indie-splosion.
Indie-splosion. Indie-copia. Indie-copia.
No.
Smorgasbord thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to deny that one.
Indigo.
Indecent proposal.
Okay.
Indecent. Indie cent proposal. There's 100 cent. There's 100.
This is like trying to name a ska band, like what you're trying to do here.
What was the one? Mephistopheles?
Mephistopheles, yeah.
Get indies. Get indies. It's a cool game, Crow Country. It is $20. We should mention some of these, some of these games. I think Cryptmaster is 25, I want to say. They all seem to be around that range.
Yeah. Animal Well is on PS Plus also.
Yes, it is. That's how I got it.
On the base PS Plus?
No, you have to have the enhanced one.
Enhanced?
Right. It's the game library one,
yeah.
Right? Of these three, like I was really interested in all three of these, and I decided to go for Cryptmaster and Animal Well, but looking at, well, we'll see how Animal Well plays out, but looking at that footage of Crow Country, that might be the one of these three that really gets me.
I like Cryptmaster. I think that game is so fun.
Yeah, that game's cool too.
And I'm going to try and jump into some Homeworld 3 for next week. I feel like I need to sit down with that one.
There's games all of a sudden with all these indies coming out. Like I wanted to play Crow Country for next week, but isn't Hellblade next week, or is that the week after?
Hellblade is the 21st, so that is indeed next week.
Yes, that is. Yes, Hellblade is out soon also.
And something else. Oh, Mullet Mad Jack, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes.
Yeah, Homeworld, like you said, like Homeworld stuff.
Homeworld getting some mixed reviews out there. I'm curious. I'm a big Homeworld 1 and 2 fan. I like those games. I like Deserts of Karak. I'm curious to see what happens. I want to see a good-looking new Homeworld. They had that Homeworld Remastered collection not too long ago. So I'm curious here. But I
mean, have they said anything about what it is that maybe people are not liking about this particular
story?
One?
Some people not liking the story. Some people not liking that you can't target subsystems. Some folks found, story kind of lacking, and the multiplayer stuff not really that great that's in it. I'm not here for the multiplayer. I'm kind of here for the story. I did read a synopsis of what the instigating factors for the story are, and I'm okay with that. Are you guys familiar with the Homeworld?
Only in the Vegas sense.
What's going on with it?
I only played the first Homeworld, and that was in 20-something years ago.
It's like a cool universe. The universe is the story they're telling is interesting in that universe. So I was kind of curious to see where things would go here, and I still am. We'll check that out soon. We'll play. And then, of course, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
You love it. Brad, have you got any more in there?
No, I should get back to it. Being out of town and not being able to play it really derailed me from it.
Where do you remember about where you were?
Yeah, I was still in, I think, chapter 5.
Chapter 5. Okay.
Rolling up on Costa del Sol.
I'll
get back to it when things slow down a little bit. I do wonder at this rate if I'm going to be like finishing it on a PS5 Pro though.
This rate.
I have I want a follow up from last week. They have injected the story back in. So I have gotten some good narrative fill-ins here. Feel like okay, now I'm interested. Let's go. Let's see what we're doing here. I did leave some Queen's Blood games on the table.
What?
I know.
Man. What are you doing?
Is it just an embarrassment of riches at some point? Do you have more Queen's Blood than you can handle? What
happened was I was actually having a lot of trouble beating two of these Queen Bloods opponents. I was like, I'm going to build a new deck. I'm going to go look up some like meta deck builds here. Like what's the, and that game when it's really in the thick of a story, it'll be like, there's no fast travel. You're not moving anywhere. Like you're sticking around here. And so that's been really long now. That whole, like we're restricting you from going off. I left some cards somewhere else to buy because they took a special currency that I didn't want to waste. We'll name what it is. But and I was like, I need that card for this deck. I need actually two of these cards for this deck. I want to build. I'll come back here. I'll do this later. But really, I still just want to say, fuck Chadley, and you can fucking sit and spin, Chadley.
Damn.
Yeah. You do as much Chadley business as you want.
He's always out there. He's always asking for more, no matter how much I do. You beat a monster, Chadley's like, great. I can add that monster to the VR. You can fight that monster again. Do it.
I don't want to do it.
You want more material you're never going to use? Do it.
Chadley did nothing wrong.
Chadley knows what he did.
That's absolutely not true.
Is your brain broken and you need to do checklist stuff? I'm here for you. Do it.
All right.
Do it. Do it. Yes. All right.
All right, I'll do whatever you say, man. Stop yelling at me.
I always open up that freaking Chadley thing and I'm like, I'm just going to just do the summon and I'm like, I'll do one of these. I'll see how fast. That was pretty easy. I'll do the next one. I'm like over leveled for this one. Actually, there's only 3 more. I should just get them off the list now. Like, it's a debuff material. I will never use that at all, but okay, here we go. Anyway, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am up to I feel like I'm moving. I'm up to, I don't want to say the name of the place yet in case that's a spoiler, but chapter
I don't think so.
13. I'm wrapping up Cosmo Canyon.
Yeah, it tracks the original game reasonably well. I think there's a little bit they moved into game 3.
Okay. So I'm wrapping up the Cosmo Canyon.
I finally found out how many like big maps there are.
Okay.
How many have you done?
I don't know, 4 or 5.
How would you feel about doing more?
How many?
I think it's 6.
Okay, I did. Well, I think when I got to Cosmo, that's when Chadley was like, "Great job! There's only one more."
Okay, yeah, I think you have one more of those.
So yeah, I'm okay. Look, I'll knock out that last one if I have to. That's fine.
What's one more?
That's fun. What's one more? Anyway, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's still happening. Still there. We're gonna talk more about just how happening it might be when we get to the news, which I think we're gonna get to in just a little bit here. You guys good to move on to news?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Let's take a break. I'm going to check my ant traps. We'll be right back. And we are back. And the ants are marching on. And they have an update here. Update on Ant Watch. They have taken the bait. They are in the traps. That's quick.
Okay.
They usually don't get in those things. Man, they're on a mission. In other news... We can keep going about the ads, but in other news...
I was going to make like a Dave Matthews joke, but it's honestly not important.
Time marches on. I don't know. The cycle of life continues at Sony. One CEO leaves, 2 CEOs enter. One man enters, 2 men enter. I don't know. Brad, what's going on with Jim Ryan's replacement here?
The eternal cycle of death and renewal, something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Ryan has a successor. Or should I say successors?
Successors.
Jim Ryan, CEO of PlayStation, stepped down, retired recently. They have named his replacements. There's not a ton to say here other than kind of who it is and what they have restructured slightly here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not going to be a single CEO of PlayStation anymore, as Jim Ryan was and the people before him were. They've now basically split that role into both platform CEO and kind of studios CEO, or internal development, I guess I should say. And the platform CEO is Hideaki Nishino, who came from the Platform Experience Group. He was a senior VP there, so just kind of moving up the ladder there.
Mm-hmm.
Herman Holst taking over CEO of the Studio Business Group, as they are calling it now.
I'm not going to say I predicted this because I super did not, but also I can't think of anyone that makes more sense in the current Sony ecosystem to just jam up there than him.
Like, he really kind of meteoric rise.
Yeah.
Like, it's not been that long since he was just running Guerrilla, the studio that made the Horizon games and Killzone and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
He took over. He was it still called Worldwide Studios by the time he got into that role? But he was in the kind of like overseeing all of the Sony internal development anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But they've just kind of more formalized, I guess, that whole situation. There might be extra layers of management in there. I don't know, but really feels like, I don't know. To me, it really feels like a reflection of the pivot point that Sony has hit now.
For sure.
Where like the narrative is, hey, consoles are kind of in trouble. Even the one that is doing really well doesn't have the rosiest future if they don't start battening the hatches down for the way things are changing. And like you've been hearing for years, like out of their earnings reports, how much like PSN is a big revenue focus now, network services, et cetera, et cetera. So having a person overseeing all the network and platform stuff and another person overseeing what they're doing with first party development kind of makes sense, I think.
Who do you think? I mean, is it Herman who becomes the front man when they need one?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
I think for Western facing like presentations, yes.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Although I'm trying to think, like they just kind of don't do a lot of stage shows anymore, right?
No, they don't. They do live streams, but they don't do a lot of shows.
Yeah, and especially the State of Plays never. Well, did they ever have talking heads?
I was going to say
really.
you didn't see Jim Ryan that much once he got in that role.
Though that was where he did see him, though, was in those occasional State of Plays. He would usually do some kind of bookending front and back thing.
Yeah, and also I think that like their kind of E3 window stream has always been a different type of thing than a State of Play, where they do bring more people out on camera to talk. So, yeah, I absolutely would expect Hulse to speak to you on their stream.
He's pretty charismatic.
That happens. Yeah, like he seems like a good pitch man. I mean,
he's got some pitching to do.
Yeah, yes, for sure. I started to make a Jack Tretton joke, but let's just move on. I miss
like
Jack
how many CEOs ago is that?
4?
3, I think, because it was House that was between him and Ryan.
They did so much reorging.
Right? I think there's also been a bunch of reorgs where they moved leadership to the U.S. for a while and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to say is like I kind of miss the era of the like video game executive hype man as like mythical character type figure. I also think there probably was something a little unhealthy about that kind of idolatry.
Yeah, maybe more than a little.
But you know, the days of Jack Tretton and Peter Moore and like just people with like kind of larger than life stage presences.
Yeah.
They were, look, there's something very human about wanting to take this monolithic company and distill it into a human, right? And be like this, and try to map the traits of Sony onto Jack Tretton, right? And be like, oh, he's basically an embodiment of Sony. I think that's kind of how that stuff works.
Yeah, or like Reggie and Iwata are great examples, although in their cases I always felt like that came more organically with them.
Yeah.
Well, like Iwata was very genuine. Like that's just who that dude was. And I think Reggie, while he was playing into the persona that the world kind of constructed for him, I also think he was just also kind of a goofball. Yeah,
to be fair. And I think like Tretton was kind of the same way. That was his personality, people just kind of like to map the like didn't we have some running gag about him like Jack Tretton private eye kind of business?
Suspenders, rolled up sleeves. A whiskey.
Like a whiskey and a revolver on the desk.
Yeah, definitely.
Just had Peter
Moore always just like consummate showman to me, like just really knew how to put on a show.
Like whenever I think about Jim Ryan though, like I just think about that one Simpsons bit wherever they cut to Matt Groening, it's like this weird old bald man with an eye patch and he's like fucking doing drugs in his office. He's like, "Get out of my office!" Fires a gun at the camera.
Jim Ryan to me will forever be that crash zoom and like
dude.
And him looking a little confused, even though he probably doesn't even know the camera was crashing in. But like
it's all of it, man. Like it's well documented that YouTube video has quite a few views of us watching that. But it was more than just the crash zoom. It was also the look on his face.
Yeah,
and what he was saying at the same. Just perfect.
Yeah, he was more, and maybe Holst will be different, but he always felt like, hey, we put the marketing guy as the front person now, and now, maybe Holst will be able to speak more on the game dev side of things. I don't know.
I mean, he ran a studio.
Yeah.
He obviously has got the chops for sure. It just the whole thing feels more manicured and like business-like these days, and not just in Sony's case, just across the board.
Yeah.
Everything feels a little bit tighter and more massaged in a corporate way.
We'll see. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes. They definitely have their work cut out for them, as like every single story is not only about, layoffs and contractions and stuff and those kind of things, but the ballooning development costs at these big studios. So we'll see. They definitely have their work cut out for them. And
as Sony is, actually, I didn't even put this in here. The sales numbers came out on Helldivers. It sold fucking 12 million copies to date.
And that's across PC and
yeah, and I bet the percentage is extremely heavily weighted toward PC on that one.
I mean, they definitely were not expecting that game to break big that way.
So, like, especially as we're moving into an era where Sony's probably going to start shipping a bunch of stuff on PC day and date, and like we talked about, they're rolling out that overlay.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're trying to make their ecosystem happen on PC. Like it kind of makes more sense that somebody should just be overseeing the platform stuff as that rollout and transition happens, and somebody should just be overseeing game development as they're going to start publishing on or putting games out on other platforms more frequently.
I bet Herman is pretty happy that this announcement came after the whole Helldivers Sony login thing announcement happened, because I feel like people would put in their mind would be this gets announced, and then 2 days later or a week later the mandatory login on the thing would be like, he's doing it. This is his thing, which it may be. I don't know. Yeah,
or was that in the purview of the platform group?
I
don't blame me. It was the platform guy.
That's right. So it wasn't me. Yeah, I was going to say on the tail of the Helldivers thing, I also wonder what their add-on in-store rate is for people buying more stuff and buying those battle passes, because they keep pumping them out. I bought 2. I've put more money into that game just because I like those battle passes and some of the gear that's in it. So I wonder, Sony looking at that, as we know they've said before, we want games with marketplaces in them. We want games that have tails on them. Looks at Helldivers and I don't know, maybe it looks at Destiny and is like, Bungie, what are we doing here? Could you do a Helldivers too? Their thing's coming out soon.
Which one?
Was it the Final Triangle?
Oh, the Final Shape.
Final Shape.
Final Shape is very soon, like next month, right?
Yeah.
Yes, like 3 weeks from now.
All right, so that's the shakeup in leadership over at PlayStation with 2 instead of 1. Jim Ryan. It takes 2 people to replace Jim Ryan.
That's right.
Next up, we finally know what the next Assassin's Creed will be. They have answered,
more or less.
They have answered the fans have been asking for decades now for
a long time.
Feels like a long. I mean,
if not since the first game, then certainly since that first trilogy.
Basically, I feel like as long as they've been hopping historical periods. Like as soon as it became clear this was going to be a long-running franchise and they were going to start visiting a bunch of different locations and times, I feel like immediately the request overwhelmingly was, you got to do samurai, you got to do feudal Japan.
Give me feudal Japan. But I think the question,
then they made Ghost of Tsushima.
But I think the question was always, well, Brad, am I going to play as a samurai or am I going to play as a ninja? We can't make
both.
These. What?
Why not both?
So
Assassin's Creed Shadows is the name of it. What had they been calling this? Was it Project Red?
I forget, because the thing is, they have that other thing going on, like it's AC Infinite or something,
Infinite.
Right?
Well, Infinite is like some kind of unifying hub thing or something.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to come after this, I believe.
But that was like one of their big tentpole things of like, this is the future of all things is Assassin's Creed.
That's some kind of longer term initiative where it almost sounds like you're going to be buying different, not content. Content pack sounds a bit derogatory, but you know what I mean? Like maybe future releases would all roll up into that platform or something. Whereas this is just another standalone game. And IGN got to go to Ubisoft Quebec and got a bunch of details on it, but even still, like Vinny, you said, I felt the same way reading this. You said this before we started. Like, I could have replaced about half of these details with just answering the question, like, is it an old style Assassin's Creed or a new style? Because it sounds like maybe some of both. IGN kind of more bullet points. Like, I think their article is 40 details you need to know. And they kind of bullet pointed out, with a lot of good, interesting stuff. Yeah, like there's some rad sounding stuff. This, I mean, just from this bullet list is probably the most excited I've been about as an Assassin's Creed in quite a long time.
But yeah, like, is it more loot game focused? Is it more traditional? You get a story weapon,
Yeah, like the Division. I think they mentioned Syndicate in here, but that's more in terms of the time period.
Yeah, and I think the traversal, the grappling hook.
This is what do they say? Because this is set in the late 1500s in Japan. The time period means this is the first game in the series to feature the Assassins and Templars in their classic forms since Assassin's Creed Syndicate. That's the only mention of Syndicate, but also Syndicate was the last of those like classic style games, right?
Well, classic, like more classic certainly than what the last trilogy was. Yeah,
I mean, it evolved definitely up to Syndicate. But what I mean is Origins was the break where it was like, hey, it's kind of The Witcher now. It's like an RPG now. Now it's a loot game with leveling and stuff like that.
I still feel fairly strongly that even though they are not emphasizing that in what they are talking about here, I get a strong sense that they are probably at least going to have some version of that loot stuff in there, even if it is maybe scaled back from where it was before. Because I never got the impression that anyone at Ubisoft thought that style of game was anything other than the future and the ongoing plan for what they were going to do with those games.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was... IGN also now has up a kind of big text.
There's like a teaser trailer too now.
Well, there's a teaser
like
trailer,
a
but they have
cinematic.
a long preview up
Mm-hmm.
that I was looking to see if they answer any of those questions in there of what the play style is more like of the actual gameplay. But literally one of the quotes in here is, during the studio tour, I'm afforded very few glimpses of actual gameplay.
Okay.
So it sounds like, and again, at the end of this story, it sounds like at the UB Forward thing on June 10th is where more of this will be shown.
Oh yeah, I bet we get a full-on gameplay demo with that thing.
Yeah. So some of the other things here that were stressed in these, not only in this bulleted list, but in the bigger article, seasons change everything.
Seasons change everything. We know that.
But I think the bigger point, I mean, aside from, look, they're putting a big thing on the seasons, and maybe that's a big thing, but for me, the character work, you have these two characters, one's a samurai, one's a ninja. The samurai is apparently an historical character.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this history before. It was cool to go read about this. The samurai, so I guess you can... God, there's a lot of gameplay
details.
details.
It's Yusuke, right? Is the name of the character?
Yasuke. There's a lot of gameplay details here. It sounds like you switch back and forth, which is that a thing they have? They did that in Syndicate.
That was
right?
Syndicate.
Yeah.
Whereas the more recent ones, it was like you picked which character you wanted at the beginning, right?
With the last two, that's how it was, yeah. Okay. Because in the first one, in Origins, it was just Bayek.
Okay, and in this, it sounds like they are both like active participants in the story. They have some of their own missions, but most of the missions you can play with either one. Anyway, yeah, Yasuke apparently was an African who worked with the Portuguese, which isn't that what Shogun is about? The Portuguese coming to Japan.
Yes, it is about
time?
The Portuguese landing in Japan.
Is this just some very happy coincidence that Shogun's like the biggest thing in the world and this happens to be about the same thing?
There's been other stuff about that and like the Catholics coming to Japan and stuff like that. Like the Scorsese movie Silence is about that too. That's a thing that's been dug into before.
Yeah. Sorry, what I meant was is the timing a happy coincidence? That
I think that's a happy coincidence, yes.
That this is coming out just like months after that show has primed people to want this exact subject.
Well, I know it's not timing because Ubisoft is terrible about this timing because they let another company go out and make the Japanese Assassin's Creed game that everyone been demanding of them for years. And in fact, that studio is already partway into a sequel for that game.
Yeah,
sure,
I mean,
well, we don't know that, but that's almost certainly what's happening.
This could be different, you know.
Well, it'll have to be because it's actual Assassin's Creed and not just someone's version of that is legally distinct. But
right. Well,
my point is, this will do well because it's Assassin's Creed. No matter what, people will buy this game. But I also wonder, like, do you have a novel notion of what you're going to do here? Because someone did just come in and make a really well-liked open-world third-person action game in the vein of Assassin's Creed in not this exact era of Japan, but within a few hundred years of it.
Yeah, that's fair. This sounds awesome, though, from what they're setting up. Real quick, just to fill in the character stuff. Yasuke, like real historical figure, like I thought to have come from Mozambique, but like not, obviously history is not super well documented at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, like worked under Nobunaga, like the Nobunaga.
Who's apparently in this as well.
To further his ambitions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think historically Yasuke is known as the first foreign fighter within like the samurai order.
And then Naue is the female character who I guess is more of a ninja. Like she's fictionalized, but anyway,
they call it shinobi in this, right? Like that's the term they're using.
So I guess she's fictionalized, but her dad is real.
Yeah, so they're using the real historical figures like Nobunaga and a few of the other people from that particular period.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty standard Assassin's Creed stuff. Right?
Yeah, just making one of them playable is actually the new thing here.
Yeah. Anyway, it sounds like obviously you can imagine pretty distinct gameplay differences between the two in terms of what they can do.
Yeah,
he's got a gun too. He's got a rifle. Yeah, it says he's got a rifle. They have separate skill trees, but shared experience points. It sounds like.
The single biggest thing that got me excited about this is, I'll just read this.
Mm-hmm.
As the title suggests, light and dark is a major part of Assassin's Creed Shadows' stealth systems. A new global illumination system creates dynamic light and shadows that affect enemy vision. You can now hide in shadows and even create darkness by destroying lanterns or killing torch carriers.
Thief.
Thief, early Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
Like, the absolute coolest thing you can do in a stealth game to me is knock out lights to make more room for yourself. And like, I feel like we have not had enough of that in stealth games for a while.
That I will agree.
And especially if they're using, this is also the first Assassin's Creed that is strictly for the current consoles. No PS4, etc. version of this. So like, they've got way better lighting that they're going to use in service of cooler stealth. That's super exciting. Brad,
can I read you the quote I pulled as the most mind-breaking thing from this whole 40 bullet-pointed list?
Sure.
The iconic synchronization points return, but in a reimagined way.
Yeah.
Climbing to the top no longer plots a multitude of icons on your map.
Yeah.
Nor does it trigger the spinning drone shot of the area. Instead, from this vantage point, you're able to survey the area for highlighted points of interest, which you can then seek out when back on the ground. That sounds very Breath of the Wild to me.
That sounds all right.
Yeah, that does sound very Breath of the Wild. Also, right after that, Ubisoft expressed a wish for there to be less icons this time around.
Yes.
Like they clearly have heard the
icon barf,
the endless sneering from people about map games with too many icons. I mean, that's good.
I definitely wrote some stuff about that.
Like that's absolutely a positive change. I just think it's kind of funny that how pointed that is. But yeah, that's super encouraging. There's also the season thing, which I don't know if that's like some combination of art and tech, I guess, from the sound of it. But each area is going to go through different seasons, which will change the look and the gameplay. Like there will be heavier grass in summer that you can hide in. Like in winter, enemies will stick closer to like fire and sources of heat, stuff like that.
Yeah,
sounds like they're actually modeling some of the weather in this.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see how that. I feel like
how that actually delivers.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've always heard those like cool engine things, and then I'm sure they're super awesome, but I feel like you don't feel it as much when you're in the game. You know, it just kind of feels like, oh yeah, right, yeah.
Or if you do feel it, it ends up feeling extremely gamified.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like oh, there's like 3 extra cover points here because there's grass now. You know, like it just feels like it's very funneled into the game mechanics.
Or this waterway you used last time is frozen over. Now you have to find another way into the castle this time, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of change up can be interesting in an area that you might have to navigate multiple times. But the dynamic weather, I think, like I've wanted like better weather for a long time in open world games. Like it's just more variety in the type of stuff you run into would be nice.
Mm-hmm. I think it depends how it's implemented. If it's one of those things where if it truly is dynamic and not necessarily scripted for major events, which I don't think they'd do that. I think they're going to do it for major story things that would be scripted. Like that can sometimes stink when it's like, oh man, I got to do this story mission and it's hailing or something, or you know, like it's something. The roofs are slippery, or this is much easier at night to do. But usually, for major stories they script that stuff. So maybe it'll just be for side missions and things where the weather really comes into play.
Yeah, they also minor detail. Naue has a grappling hook.
Yep.
Which says it can be attached to every roof edge as well as other anchor points. Unlike the zip line in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, this rope uses physics simulation to allow dynamic swinging.
Here we are.
So that sounds fun. Like she sounds like the pure stealth character if you really want to just get creative with like being nimble.
I mean, she is a ninja. That does make some sense.
Yeah, but I mean, having that ability to like grapple everywhere and swing around like that sounds really fun. This sounds rad. Like all the changes and additions they're setting up in the gameplay here. I mean, we'll see how it actually plays out, but like this is a stronger pitch for this than I expected.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see when we see the gameplay, what this looks like, how open world they're going with this and how structured they're going. Because a lot of these things add up to what sound like a pretty free form game of seeking out your targets when you want and how you want.
That was the last detail I forgot to mention that I was excited about. Game features a nonlinear campaign largely focused on targets. You'll be free to track these targets in any order. Some targets simply exist in the world, and you may stumble on them organically. Others have more structured infiltration style gameplay. They mentioned you can like build up a spy network to send out and gather more intel on your targets. Like that sounds like it's getting back to what the very first game did. That was really cool.
Yeah. Though I will say I feel like that in the intervening years, some of those sequels have gotten that exact bullet point of saying, no, we made it more freeform. You can do more target stuff. And that's tended to be in games like, let's say, Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah. Or in practice, it's actually kind of not as fun as...
It's just not exactly what you're hoping for.
Yeah. Like, I like a pretty narrative-driven Assassin's Creed game that is maybe a little more on the rails, but I actually didn't like that last one that came out. I can't remember the name of it. The one
Mirage.
that released, was it this year? Was it, Brad?
Mirage was last year.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I'm with you, Brad. This is all pretty encouraging, and actually this write-up and this preview from IGN gets me pretty excited. We'll have to wait, next month. Next month is, man, it's next month already. To see what happens when they, I assume, show it at their Ubisoft. Did IGN have the exclusive on this preview?
I believe so.
Looked like it.
Okay. I'm curious.
Yes, exclusive look.
Okay. That is Assassin's Creed Shadows.
I remember flying to Canada to do exclusive preview coverage of Assassin's Creed games.
Aww.
That is a long tradition.
Wait, there is a date on this, right? November.
Yes, out in November. We have a major November release.
Yes.
And they did, well, okay, I was going to say they skipped a year, but they didn't. They actually put out Mirage last year, but they might as well have skipped a year.
Yeah, remember Mirage was built on, originally started as a DLC expansion, so I feel like that one was kind of a smaller release.
This also for their release block here, Amazon Luna. Amazon Luna is still a thing?
Yeah, it's still going.
Allegedly.
All right. That is the Assassin's Creed Shadows out in November. We talked a little bit about Final Fantasy before, and the Final Fantasy Rebirth and decisions that were made in the making of that game. Brad, now we go to the decisions that are being made as a result of the decisions that were made maybe in making that game. What's going on over in the Square Enix-averse?
Square Enix put out did their big earnings report. Profits are down significantly. That fiscal year in question includes Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth, as well as Foam Stars. And some of the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Or all of them? I can't remember. I thought those have been coming out for a while.
Yeah, I thought there were two chunks of them.
I think maybe the big collection came out last year along with the second half or something along those lines. Anyway, their earnings are down significantly. Like they took a loss. Despite these two very major Final Fantasy, like what should be Square's biggest possible games coming out.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think they had reported 16 at 3 million a while back, but had never followed up on that. There was no further update on its sales figures here. They still have not reported any numbers for 7 Rebirth. But they did say it did not reach internal projections. Foam Stars, same thing. No numbers, but did not meet targets. Like, kind of really seemed to be I don't think they came out and said, hey, we shouldn't have gone exclusive on PlayStation. But they are very explicitly saying, hey, we are pivoting to an aggressively multi-platform future.
That seems to be the way, right?
Is the big change here.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you spend time on like Reset Era reading about this stuff, you do start to wonder, like, is Final Fantasy not what it used to be? Like, did the kids just not care? That's probably the case. There's also that conversation. I certainly can't speak to that.
I do think to some degree, I think part of the reason why the Final Fantasy VII thing, it is what it is doing what it's doing is because it really is a game that is not impenetrable, but definitely does not hold nearly the same appeal for anyone that does not have that specific nostalgia.
Yeah,
and there is at least a generation and a half of gamers that maybe does not have that at all.
Yes, definitely seems like other Japanese RPGs or other franchises are bigger with younger people, like Persona, for example.
The other thing I'll just say anecdotally, my son played through Remake, actually really enjoyed it. No familiarity with 7 really, aside from characters that have been in Smash Brothers. But remember how he said like, oh, maybe with Rebirth you get into it and you get the whole thing. Maybe you're waiting for the 3rd one to come out and you get the whole thing. I think what he ran into is it's just too much damn game. It's just like he burned out. Like he was playing intermission, and I haven't seen him play it in a while. And I think he's just like, it's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it back when Week Rebirth came out. I played like 30 hours of Remake and then like finished that.
Yeah.
Started Rebirth an hour later with some intermission in between.
Yeah.
It was straight up flashing back to my GameSpot reviewing days. It was just like, dude, there's so much fucking video game here.
It's a lot. So like, I imagine a bunch of people got into Remake. A percentage of it did not finish it, and they're probably not moving on. And then of the people that are way into it, a percentage are not buying Rebirth, right? Like you're a percentage of a percentage at that point.
Yeah.
And you've got another one on the books announced.
Yeah, there's like definitely factors, just like sequel and platform upgrade and stuff like that probably held it back somewhat. I mean, I guess there's always like a sequel dip, right? Or frequently.
Especially in a narrative sequel, right? Like in a thing that hooks so much into the first one where like, are you going to skip Remake and jump into Rebirth? Like, I don't know. But like you can jump into Gears 4 if you want, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, importantly, it did not meet their targets.
Yes.
So they're going to pivot and make changes after that. They didn't talk a lot about Dragon Quest 12, but this happened a while back. I believe the long-time producer, I should say, of the Dragon Quest franchise kind of stepped down / was removed.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a leadership change on Dragon Quest 12 as well, is what I am getting at here. So like that franchise's development has been slightly rocky as well. Which I don't know how Dragon Quest does these days.
I thought the last one, Builders did pretty well.
I think Builders did quite well, but then, that's riding the crafting craze kind of thing.
Right.
I'm talking mainline. Like I don't know how DQ11 did.
I thought DQ11 was considered a success, but I could be completely off base on that.
I'm with you, Alex. I remember people speaking positively about it, but I don't know financial success.
Yeah, I will say, like I saw this just kind of came across my Twitter feed, like a commercial that ran in Japan I think it was for 11. That was extremely nostalgia focused. Like it was like a bunch of footage they had shot of Japanese school children, but clearly like 80s fashions and like slightly sepia toned. The point is, it literally was just very directly going like, hey, remember how much you loved Dragon Quest as a kid in school?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want to go back to that? So I feel like if they're targeting adults who loved Dragon Quest back in the day, I don't know how well it does with younger people as well. Like, I don't know. Are the old franchises kind of aging out a little bit here?
It depends how you treat them, right? And like what you're doing with them. What did Square and Enix merge?
It was like not long after Spirits Within, because that almost sank Squaresoft to the point that they had to get acquired / merged.
Okay, so it was like early 2000s.
Like early 2000s, 2001 maybe.
Okay. So they've been Dragon Questing since the early 2000s, Square Enix?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And if I remember, like Enix came out ahead on that deal. It was 2003.
Okay.
But I believe like the Enix leadership was more dominant after that happened.
With the black eye from Spirits Within?
If I'm not mistaken. Wait, do you remember details of Spirits Within?
I remember it being a bomb.
Is that a thing in that movie? I went to see that in the theater and I have zero recollection of anything about it.
No, I'm saying the movie, I remember it being a bomb.
Oh, sure.
I do remember some things about the movie. I remember all the Gaia stuff. I remember Donald Sutherland sounding like he was completely confused about where he was or what he was doing.
I remember people get hit by like a spectral tentacle and their spirit flies out.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin was there.
Yeah.
Maybe we should watch that.
Yeah,
I would watch that again. It's been a long time, and I actually would like to go back and see if there's actually anything to that thing or not.
Oh my god, it got a 4K release, really?
Yes, it did. Not that long ago, too. Dude, I think there's a 4K release of Dirge of Cerberus, or whatever that fucking, like, the 7 movie was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent of, like, hey, do these old RPG franchises still, like, play with younger people? I don't know.
It's not the genre. I do wonder if the actual franchise means much to people, people.
Yeah, like I said, like Persona is still huge, Like
Persona's still huge. Those new Yakuza games are doing well in that format.
That's what I meant more specifically. Like, hey, is Final Fantasy just not as cool as it used to be? Is Dragon Quest like a little bit?
I think you
on
also
the back foot.
Final Fantasy, and I don't know Dragon Quest that well. I was never really a Dragon Quest person, but Final Fantasy in particular. Don't forget. Well, you wouldn't forget. You know this. Allow me to posit that Final Fantasy has a different protagonist each game. So you might have your Final Fantasy that you're like, oh. When are we redoing 9? I don't care about 7.
Oh yeah, that factionalism I've spoken about recently on social media. Like people are slightly at each other's throats about which ones are the good ones.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like you might love Final Fantasy but hate 7, right? Or think 7 ruined it, right? Or something, and you're just even in the so I think you get it's a little harder because there's so much variety.
In
that whole series to even get a new audience hooked, because what is Final Fantasy?
What is it?
What is it?
No one's ever been able to answer that question.
No, nobody knows. Kind of like Persona, I guess, but at least Persona has a unified style pretty much. Like when I think of Persona game, I think of teens and like cool menus and some like
totally.
And some jazz in there.
And the sickest fucking soundtrack you're going to hear whatever that year is.
Like this is a single data point, but I have a friend with 2 teenage daughters and they love Persona.
Yeah.
And other, like they love anime and like Persona and other JRPG franchises, but I think as far as I know, maybe there's some Final Fantasy appreciation there. But I think that's maybe Final Fantasy is not like the cool franchise necessarily these days.
Nah. Not these days.
At any rate, whatever. Like this is much more about PlayStation exclusivity, and they're reorging. There's a bunch of layoffs, of course, here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull that up. I think it's Europe and America are where the layoffs are. I don't think any in Japan.
And that's Square Enix focused?
Yeah. Publishing, IT, and the Square Enix Collective label, which is like their indie games group. Sounds like that's the focus of the layoffs primarily.
Okay.
But yes, they quite literally said aggressively pursue, like I'll just quote here, quote, they are going to, quote, aggressively pursue a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs.
Cannot wait to see them try to jam Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth onto a Switch.
Or how about a Switch 2?
Maybe a Switch 2. Maybe
how about a Switch 2? Which sounds like I didn't even get into, like there's specs flying around everywhere right now that supposedly have leaked out of supply chain. That thing sounds like if that stuff is accurate, it's probably going to be perfectly capable of running slightly reduced versions. It'll be able to run a fully normal version of Remake.
But how much internal storage will it have?
And a slightly reduced version of Rebirth. I think 256 gig was the rumor.
Ugh. I guess their games are always a little smaller anyway.
12 gig of memory, so like that thing is sounding like not a slouch if any of that stuff is real. Anyway, yeah, like big things. They also have reorged, like they've reorged into a different kind of construction of console teams and a big mobile division, basically. So like they're doing a big about face here, a big pivot. Probably the end of PlayStation exclusivity from Square.
The Final Fantasy IX remake will be on all your favorite platforms.
Unless I don't know what happens with games that are already in development though. I don't know.
Port them.
Yeah, maybe at launch they're still PlayStation only, just because the realities of development are such that you can't necessarily just like spin up ports at the drop of a hat.
I don't know. I heard you can just throw some N64 games into a program and just make some PC port.
Decompile them. Yeah, that's right. Decompile this Final Fantasy remake game. How many lines?
My understanding is that's how game development works.
Let's just go back to old games.
No.
New games are cool too.
Final Fantasy, those are SNES Final Fantasies, still some of the best. Still some of the best.
Yeah, but like they've got Kingdom Hearts 4, whatever this third Final 7 remake game is, Dragon Quest 12, like. Will those be PlayStation exclusive de facto by the time they come out, or will they have gotten ports together? I don't know.
Are the Final Fantasy diehards and the Kingdom Hearts diehards just getting exhausted to a point where they're just, look, man, I'm like 45, nearing 50. There's only so much time in my life I still have for Keyblades and
do not ask a Kingdom Hearts fan about their appetite for Kingdom Hearts.
I'm saying,
yeah, you can't tucker those people out, man. There's no stopping them.
It's an endless well.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Brad, one of your favorite franchises.
Yeah.
One a seminal. We just talked about, well, what's going on with id? Brad, what's going on with id? Possibly going on with id.
They might be announcing a new Doom game next month. Although made by id, who knows, actually.
Yeah.
We don't even know for sure. Could have been farmed out or something.
Where's this coming from?
The Verge, Tom Warren at The Verge kind of implied it in a slightly cheeky way in a story, but then Eurogamer also backed that up, saying they have also heard there's a Doom announcement ready for that showcase.
Okay.
Who knows what it is? I'd missed this. Apparently, in January, ZeniMax filed a trademark for IDKFA, which is the give all weapons cheat code from the original Doom.
Oh.
I don't know what the hell that could be referring to.
Huh.
Do you know what that stands for?
I don't know that it ever stood for anything.
Oh, really? It's not like id, kill.
I don't think
it
so.
might internally, and we don't know,
Okay.
but
IDDQD is the God code. ID SPISPOPD is the no clip code.
Careful, they might be all trademarked now.
Mhm.
It gets pulled down just for saying it.
Yeah.
okay, let me put this another way. I was about to say, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but, I think I could be.
Hey, if you had to guess how long it's been since Doom Eternal, what would you say?
4 years?
It's been 4 years.
Yeah.
Over 4 years. That's definitely getting into like full game development cycle time since Eternal. I'm kind of with you though. I don't know if I would want another Doom from them versus something new.
I think the last Doom just did not hit for me the way I was hoping for. It's not a bad game. I was not as excited about it as I was the first remake, and now my enthusiasm for another one is just like a little more tempered.
Yeah, there were changes. I liked Eternal quite a bit, but there were changes to both gameplay and kind of style of storytelling that felt like I did not personally like as much as 2016.
Yeah.
Also, 2016 was just so. It's weird to say, given what the combat is, but it's so refreshing. It was so fun.
Well, it was just also out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Obviously there's been a lot of Doom over the years, but like when that thing came out, I don't think any of us expected that game to be that good.
No, I've completely fucking floored by it, especially considering they were in the middle of their not sending out review code period.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, well, they're making a new Doom game. I'm sure that'll be great kind of thing. And then we came out and played it. I was like, oh my God, it is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eternal's cool. It's just 2016 was much more of that classic dynamic style of run and gun ammo management. Like, I'm going to use whatever I have on hand here to get through this.
Yeah.
Eternal is way more of a combat puzzle where there's kind of like a correct way to do things, or multiple correct ways, but still it's like you need to be leapfrogging do your glory kills to get this resource, to use the chainsaw to get this resource, to you need to hit this weak point on this enemy the specific way with this weapon. You know what I mean?
And a little more traversal, I feel like.
Yeah, and definitely way more traversal, which is like interesting in and of itself. I'm not knocking it, but that made it also very different, much more like combat arena style. I
still think the Doom 2016 story was really fun.
The story, fucking incredible.
Yeah. It's
and the storytelling, again, like the tone of the game, like the reactions from the protagonist to the storytelling.
Yeah.
The whole thing was just glorious.
It's hard to hit that again, right? And for the first, obviously impossible for the first time.
Yeah, but they also didn't try. Like, they just kind of went in a more serious, like, lore-heavy direction in Eternal.
So this is all possible, but of course we have in less than a month we will have Microsoft's, I forget what they call their thing, but they're not E3 Summer Games Fest.
Yes, their big showcase. I mean, I will be excited to see whatever id has been up to, or whatever somebody else is doing with Doom, if that's the case.
And like we mentioned last week, Microsoft kind of needs to get out there and do some damage control on the public side and the PR side. So
yeah,
I think we're past damage control. I think they literally just have to start repairing on the fly now, because they are already heavily damaged.
Sure. Let's say maybe boarding up the holes in the ship.
They are trying to board that thing up while it is flooding.
Yeah, they need to show games, and they need to show games that are not just Call of Duty and Gears 6, which I assume is what they're like. They are leaning very hard into this, like, hey, we're doing a showcase, and then we're doing a redacted direct right afterwards. Which, it could be anything, I guess, but like all the rumors have been so heavy about Gears 6. Like, I have nothing against Gears, but if those are the only two big games they have there, then
yeah,
That's not going to go over well with all the people who are upset about the studios that are getting closed and the cool games that are no longer happening.
Yeah, it does feel like they need something else.
Like, yes, I'm just going to say you don't go, for me, and tell me there's a Gears of 6, which feels like very, I don't know much about the game, because we don't know much about the game, but you can kind of guess what it would be in a Gears game, and then tell me, like, we're not doing something like a Hi-Fi Rush anymore, which was like very novel and unique and fun.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean they do have. We've talked about this, I think, last week. They do have plenty of other stuff.
Yeah. Show me Fable.
Like let's see Fable. Let's see South of Midnight. Like Everwild, if that's still a game.
Yeah,
I hope it is.
Don't show me a new Forza. No offense to the Forza people. Had a lot of Forza recently.
I would say we're due for Horizon, but they just put out the last full game last year, and knowing that Playground, I know they're a 2-game studio now, but knowing that Playground has to get something for Fable out soon, I have to imagine all hands are on deck for that. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the car team got pulled onto the fantasy team.
Yeah, gross. Fantasy cars. All right, that is the news. Got an email address here. It is podcast@nextlander.com, podcast@nextlander.com. Brad Shoemaker, got an email in that bag of yours?
I do. If I can find it.
What saith the email?
Here's a question from Travis in Fargo. Do you ever give 1-star reviews for anything?
Do I? Like,
I mean, I used to be a critic, so I'm pretty sure I did that a few times.
This is personal, right? This is
and then, I think in a modern context, especially for us now, it's more like product reviews on Amazon or something like that.
Well, let me back it up. Do you guys do reviews of products ever?
No, I never leave like reviews on Amazon or anything like that ever.
I do sometimes on eBay. If I buy from a seller multiple times and they're good, I will do that for their solid, but I don't do that on products.
That's true. I will do it on eBay. I generally try to do it no matter what, and it's mostly like same thing, right? Like those people probably rely on having good reputations, and if it's positive, then it's positive. If it's negative, then I usually will not leave a review. I usually will not leave a negative review unless there's something like a scam. All right.
That's the thing, is that it has to be a truly wretched experience for me to go out there and do that.
So a 1-star review, I probably, if I were ever so mad or felt so burned at a 1-star review, A, you would have heard about it on one of our many podcasts, and B, I would probably want to burn the place down in some kind of public way. I've never felt good about using any kind of forum we have to take a business down, unless it's, every health insurance company I've ever used. But
yeah, that's a different situation.
1-star. But if a 1-star to me is that, it probably is that level of, look, everybody needs to know.
It has to really suck.
They're putting broken glass in your ice cream,
Yeah.
I've read a lot of 1-star reviews that are not good reviews. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
A 1-star Amazon review where it's like, the box was damaged when it got here, and it's like, come on, man, that's shipping. That's
a problem.
That's a problem, but that's maybe not the person who made this thing.
No.
Broken in transit, or I tried to use this thing underwater and it didn't say you can't use it underwater and it broke. I'm like, all right, come on, that's not my use case here. So no is my answer. I've never
got it.
Oh, I wish Giant Bomb reviews were more easily searchable.
You want to know what you've given a 1-star to?
Yeah, I don't know if the API is still functional. You could query it that way, but I'm certainly not going to figure that out in the next 10 seconds.
There were definitely some periods there when I was working remotely where I was reviewing a lot of random XBLA games, and I feel like at least a couple of those got 1-stars from me.
I think Velvet Assassin I gave 1-star, if I remember.
Blackwater is one that I gave 1-star.
I came very close to giving both Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem 1-star. And part of me still wishes I had.
I feel like Anthem, clearly unpatchable problem in gameplay.
Yeah.
Andromeda, that game could get to 3 stars.
It was because of the bugs, to be clear.
The bugs.
It was
unplayable
like both of those games were so fucking technically broken when I reviewed them that they still, to this day, I feel like they probably deserve 1-star.
I think the only game I wish I'd given 1 star to that I ended up giving 2, if I remember correctly, was Never Dead.
I remember that.
The one you rip your head off and kick it around?
Yes, that game sucked gallons of ass.
Oh, man. Is that your Blight Club game that somebody would do to you?
I mean, I would definitely inflict that on someone if I was mad.
The first non-Wikipedia result on Google for Never Dead is a Reddit thread from only 2 years ago. Good Lord Almighty, in my 30-plus years of gaming, Never Dead has to be one of the worst games I've ever played.
Yeah, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, pin that one in your head. I feel like Dan might need some new games soon, right? Did he ever
well, he hasn't gotten to those yet.
Okay.
Oh, that was Rebellion, huh?
Yeah, that one was a mistake in a lot of different ways.
I feel like I remember the artwork for that. I don't know if I've ever heard like Never Dead spoken about as one of those like Superman 64 monstrosity games.
Yeah, because no one remembers it. Like Superman 64 came out at a time where it's like when a game was that bad, you remembered.
Superman 64 remembers.
It's pretty close to the Rogue Warrior era from them. To be clear.
Interesting.
Rogue Warrior, God.
No 1-star reviews from me.
All right.
Yeah.
Everything's great, says Vinny Caravella.
Everything's great, or it didn't get reviewed. It's if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say a thing. It's kind of my online review.
Terrible approach for a critic, but totally fine for an average consumer.
Yeah. Why didn't this thing get reviewed? Because I hated it. Because I didn't like it, and
because I don't have time to be reviewing everything that I hate.
It's just I hate it. And again, I do appreciate when people put up stuff. I'm not saying there's no room in this world for bad reviews. If something is horrible or a scam or predatory, I want to know about it. But I don't do it. I don't send food back, and I don't give 1-star reviews.
Okay,
this is my thing. All right. We'll move on from the emails. I actually, I've got to go to a concert tonight.
Oh,
yes.
Well, there's only one question.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about the ants while you're gone?
I'm gonna let these ant traps do their work. I can see that it looks like they are maybe moving their eggs. They're really moving into this HDMI converter. Really just getting in there. But these traps are doing well. I'm gonna go. Probably hose off the ants that have crawled into my clothing at this point, and edit this podcast and go enjoy
live your damn life.
Go enjoy a middle school concert, like my best life. 1 star. 1 star. Clarinet could have been better.
5 stars at the concert, 1 star to the ants.
1 star to the ants. Man, these freaking ants! Look at these. Oh,
this is really bumming you out.
Well. I
understand why.
It's just gnarly. Just gnarly. You don't need to see it. You could imagine. I'm good. I'm very close to it also. All right. Before we get going here, and I ship myself off to the concert, I want to mention that we have the Watchcast and Twin Peaks rocking and rolling. We are in it. We have episodes 1 and 2 up now, with 3 and 4 also recorded. So that'll go up. 3 and 4 will go up next week over at patreon.com/Nextlander. We are in Twin Peaks The Return, which is Twin Peaks Season 3. We're making all the sense out of it. We are dissecting this cinema,
We understand everything.
We understand it all. All of our predictions are correct. You should join us. I am curious when people talk about and they have seen it before or going back, or so, even those who have never seen it before. Brad and I have never seen it before. Alex has seen it before and has all of the, let's just say, third-party materials at hand as well. The books and the whatnot. So it's very fun.
I don't know if I should spoil our thoughts at all, but I saw some people after our response to Firewalk with Me kind of like wringing their hands about how much we would like The Return or be into it. The answer may surprise you.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
You'll have to tune in to find out.
No reviews because we all hate it.
Yeah.
I don't leave bad star reviews.
If we don't post an episode one week, it's because we didn't like those episodes.
Just didn't like it.
Also, I don't think we hated Firewalk with Me, to be clear, but
I certainly don't.
You should go. You can go listen to us talk about Firewalk with Me.
That's already live. You can just go listen to that.
You can just go listen to that right now. You can go check that stuff out over at patreon.com/Nextlander. We also got Never Been a Better Podcast. We'll go up on Friday, and that's a heck of an episode. All the ins and outs of consoles and of old consoles and favorite consoles. That's Dan Reichert and Austin Walker. Join us for that. We got the Ramblecast up there. Bunch of stuff. Patreon.com/Nextlander, where you can find a tier that is right for you. We have one tier there, though. They get their names read on this here podcast, and I'm going to read those for you today. Starting with Sean Miller, RRE, Infelicitous Rips, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Vampire Queen Deidre, Gary Pejke, Robert Fisher, Bunny Fiend, the original, Jad Rita, Statics, Fantasticasm89, Razgriz2, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Andrew Tiebkin, Alex Wu, It's Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese. Those are your mysterious benefactors for this week. I want to thank them. I want to thank everybody who has gone over to patreon.com/Nextlander. Gone over there, supported us, checking out that Watchcast, checking out that Never Been a Better Podcast, going in there. There's a bunch of episodes in there. Did you know you go in there, you don't just get that month's, you get all of it. It's just sitting there. It's like a bag that keeps filling up with goodness. And you can go in there, you can open up your bag, and it's like, it's bounty. It's a bounty.
Hey kids, open up your bag.
Yeah, what's in
Find
there?
our podcast.
It's a bunch of Watchcasts and some Never Been a Better Podcast in there. Oh, Austin Walker's in there. Oh, so is Jeff Baclar.
That's where I left him.
Agent Cooper. That's over at patreon.com/Nextlander. Thanks, everybody. We are going to finish up, I assume we're going to finish up Dark Seed on Friday.
Almost assuredly.
Can't wait to see what the heck happens there. Abby Russell and I are going to be streaming tomorrow some Tex Murphy. We are continuing our Tex Murphy adventure, literally our adventures, over on Twitch. You can catch us there. And we will have a patron Q&A on Thursday as well. You can join us for that. Details over on the Discord for that. Get your questions in, and we'll A those queues. That's how that works. Thanks again for everybody who came, supported, listened. Appreciate it.
And continues to do so.
And continues to do so.
Past, present, and future tense.
Yes, ongoing. Thank you, Alex Navarro.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad Shoemaker.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.